Chapter 503, Black Pot Rumble. The self-destruction of an early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist was extremely powerful. Especially at the center of the explosion, it was so powerful that it was enough to destroy a true martial realm martial artist in an instant. Ningyu wasn't a fool. He naturally wouldn't put himself in danger. Swoosh! The instant Spirit Fox number 5 exploded, Ningyu grabbed Ouyang Hai, who was beside him, and entered his storage ring. Puffed. As for Spirit Fox number 1, he was not so lucky. His right hand was already severely injured. Now that he was caught off guard by Spirit Fox number 5's self-destruction, the result was obvious. The aftermath of the explosion hit Spirit Fox number 1, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His clothes were stained red. Puffed. Although Li Tongtian was far away from the center of the explosion, he was still affected. Fortunately, Li Tongtian woke up at the critical moment. He gathered all his primordial qi around his body and set up a primordial qi shield. Otherwise, this shockwave alone would have been enough to kill him in his heavily injured state. Swoosh! When the aftermath of the explosion disappeared, Ningyu grabbed Ouyang Hai and dashed out of the storage ring. Ningyu and Ouyang Hai's clothes were tattered, and there were even a few burns on their skin. Spirit Fox number 1, who was breathing weakly not far away, looked similar to Ningyu and Ouyang Hai. Those who did not know the inside story would think that they had experienced the self-destruction of an early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist. Go! When Ningyu saw Spirit Fox number 1 struggling to even stand up, the corners of his lips curled up. With a flick of his wrist, a trace of soul power shot out and headed straight for Spirit Fox number 1. The Spirit Fox number 1's eyes flashed with terror as it stared at the soul power that was rushing towards it. It wanted to block the attack, but lacked the strength to do so. Without a doubt, the soul force entered Spirit Fox number 1's sea of consciousness and lay dormant. Phew! After doing all this, Ningyu let out a long breath and murmured. Although the space in the storage ring was almost destroyed, the reward was huge. If it weren't for Sun Jiangwen and the Dark Emperor supporting the self-destruction of an early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist, the storage ring would have been shattered long ago. As it turned out, Ningyu's gamble was right. Spirit Fox. Oh no! However, just as Ningyu was about to say something, his expression changed drastically. This was because his keen perception could tell that there were several cultivators rushing over from not too far away from this area. From these cultivators, Ningyu discovered an extremely familiar aura. Since Old Tan is here, then the rest of the martial artists must be from the royal family. Ningyu rolled his eyes. Then, he exerted some force on his ankle and kicked Ouyang Hai to the foot of Spirit Fox number 1. Then, Ningyu's eyes rolled back, and he fell backward. Looking at Ouyang Hai at his feet, Spirit Fox number 1's mouth gaped open, his face filled with confusion. Voila! Just as Spirit Fox number 1's face was filled with confusion, several figures approached from afar. In an instant, they appeared in the area. Spirit Fox number 1, hurry up and release the third prince. Old Tan shouted as soon as he appeared. Obviously, Old Tan saw Ouyang Hai at the foot of Spirit Fox number 1. Stop talking nonsense with him. Attack! Next to Old Tan, an elder of late-stage Yin-Yang realm rushed out with a cold look in his eyes. This late-stage Yin-Yang realm elder was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he appeared next to Spirit Fox number 1. Bang! Bang! 2 consecutive punches were thrown. One landed on Spirit Fox number 1's chest while the other landed on his head. Spirit Fox number 1 was already severely injured and on the verge of death. Now that he was hit by 2 powerful punches, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Oh no, the third prince has been killed. After forcing Spirit Fox number 1 to retreat, the elder of late-stage Yin-Yang realm focused his perception on Ouyang Hai. His face instantly turned gloomy. As a late-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist, he naturally knew that Ouyang Hai could not be more dead. Even if God came, he would not be able to save Ouyang Hai. What? The third prince has been killed. Hearing the words of the late-stage Yin-Yang realm elder, Old Tan's expression changed and his heart sank. His mission this time was to escort the third prince to Shishan City. Now that the third prince had been killed, he would definitely be held responsible. One could imagine that Ouyang Ba would definitely not let him off when they returned to the capital. Now that things have come to this, there's no turning back. On the other side, a middle-stage Yin-Yang realm middle-aged man said, "The only thing we could do now is to bring Spirit Fox number 1 back to the capital and interrogate the person who issued this mission." Yes, yes, bring Spirit Fox number 1 back to the capital. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Old Tan seemed to have grasped onto a life-saving straw and said hurriedly, "The assassination pavilion has even mobilized the Spirit Fox team. This must be a premeditated murder. There are 2 survivors here." Suddenly, the late-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist said, "Should we finish them off as well?" Hearing this, Old Tan shifted his gaze over. It's Ning Yu and Li Tongtian. When he saw the 2 familiar figures lying on the ground, Old Tan was slightly stunned and then asked in confusion, "Why aren't the 2 of them dead? Could this matter be related to them? That shouldn't be possible." The late-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist shook his head and pointed at Ningyu. This martial artist's aura is weak, and even his consciousness is in a mess. From this, we can see that he was also severely injured in the explosion. He was just lucky that he didn't die on the spot. As for Li Tongtian, he's not much better. Apart from his broken ribs, he has also ruptured several major tendons and veins. If we don't treat him in time, I'm afraid he won't live past tomorrow. Wan Jingtian, we have to find someone to take the blame, right? Otherwise, when we meet the Emperor, Old Tan will definitely suffer. The middle-aged man frowned. That's true. The late-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist called Wan Jingtian pondered for a moment before saying, "This is a heavy responsibility. I'm afraid one person won't be able to take it. In my opinion, let the 2 of them take the blame. Even so, I'm afraid that the Emperor won't believe me." Old Tan looked worried. "Hee, with Fong Ming and me speaking up for you, the Emperor will definitely believe you." Wan Jingtian laughed. "That's right. If we add Spirit Fox number 1's accusations, then the 2 of them will have to take the blame, even if they don't want to." Fong Ming said sinisterly, "I can't thank you enough. If I can get through this, I'll do anything for you 2 in the future." Old Tan quickly cupped his fists and said solemnly, "It's still too early to talk about this. The most important thing now is to bring the 3 of them back to the capital." Wan Jingtian waved his hand, then grabbed Spirit Fox number 1 and Ouyang Hai and flew toward the capital. Behind him, Fong Ming carried Ningyu and followed closely. Chapter 504. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In the forest that was not too dense, a few silhouettes dashed past. In order not to cause any trouble, Old Tan and the rest did not take the main road. Instead, they took a shortcut to the capital. The death of the third prince was a big deal. Without the Emperor's permission, Old Tan and the rest did not dare to announce it. Taking a shortcut to the capital was the best choice. "You want me to be the scapegoat? Not so easy." Ningyu had heard every single word of the conversation between Old Tan, Wan Jingtian, and the rest. Ningyu knew very well that Ouyang Ba would be furious when he found out that Ouyang Hai was killed. By then, it was not impossible for him to order Fong Ping to be killed. Luckily, I left a trace of soul force in Spirit Fox number 1's consciousness. Otherwise, this matter would be tricky and Li Tongtian's injuries would be difficult to deal with. Ningyu rolled his eyes and came up with a plan. After all, Li Tongtian's injuries could not be delayed for long. If it came down to it, Ningyu decided to take action forcefully. No matter what, he could not let Li Tongtian die. After that, Ningyu disguised himself carefully to prevent Fong Ming from noticing anything. After all, Fong Ming was an intermediate Yin-Yang state martial artist. His perception was extremely strong. If he found out that his injuries were fake, the consequences would be dire. Swoosh! Fong Ming and the rest were very fast. In just an hour, they arrived at the capital. However, it was not the main gate, but the side gate. We'll enter the capital in batches later. I'll bring Spirit Fox number 1 and Ouyang Hai to meet the Emperor first. You guys find a place to rest. At the side gate, Wan Jingtian was still more cautious. he said in a deep voice. Wait for the Emperor to calm down before you guys meet him. Understood. Fong Ming and Old Tan replied in unison. Old Tan, in particular, cast a grateful look at Wan Jingtian. One could imagine how furious Ouyang Ba would be when he saw that Ouyang Hai was killed. If Old Tan was here at this moment, he would most likely be in trouble. Wan Jingtian's actions were clearly to give Elder Tan some buffer time. To be precise, he had saved his life. I will communicate with the Emperor and tell him that Ning Yu and Li Tongtian have already escaped and that I have sent the two of you to hunt them down. Wan Jingtian waved his hand, and in a flash, he entered the capital. Old Tan, let's go. Watching Wan Jingtian leave, Fong Ming took a step forward, intending to enter the capital. However, Fong Ming hadn't even taken a few steps when Old Tan's voice resounded in his ears. Fong Ming, I hope you can help me one more time. Elder Tan looked troubled. After hesitating for a while, he said, Li Tongtian can't die. I hope that you can personally join up his meridians. Oh, why must Li Tongtian not die? Fong Ming's brows twitched when he heard Old Tan's words. From Fong Ming's point of view, Ning Yu and Li Tongtian were no different. They were both ordinary genius martial artists. It was just that one of them had reached the pinnacle of the primal core realm, while the other was merely at the pinnacle of the true martial realm. From what Old Tan had said, it seemed like there was more to it than met the eye. Li Tongtian can't die. Old Tan took a deep breath and said, although Ning Yu is a core disciple of Danwu College's Sacred College, it will be troublesome if he dies, but it won't be too big of a deal. It won't be enough to cause a war between Danwu College and the royal family. Li Tongtian is different. His identity is more special. If he dies in our hands, it will most likely cause a war between the royal family and Danwu College. Gasp! Old Tan's solemn words caused Fong Ming to gasp as he asked, It's that serious? Old Tan nodded and said in a low voice, It is indeed that serious. In fact, it might be even more serious than that. What is Li Tongtian's identity? At this point, Fong Ming was very curious about Li Tongtian's identity. He has a close relationship with a big shot from Danwu College. After saying this, Old Tan seemed to be afraid that Fong Ming would misunderstand. So he added, This is all I know. No wonder Li Tongtian was able to scare away Qian Hu, who was in the intermediate stage of Yin-Yang realm, with just a black token back in the palace. Although Ning Yu's eyes were tightly shut, he heard the conversation between Old Tan and Fong Ming clearly. Especially when he heard that Li Tongtian's identity was special, Ning Yu couldn't help but recall the scene back in the palace. Qian, who was already furious at first, who would have thought that Li Tongtian's identity would scare him away with just a token? At that time, Ning Yu guessed that Li Tongtian's identity was not simple. Since they want to treat Li Tongtian, I'll wait. Originally, Ning Yu had planned to forcefully take action. Now, it seemed like he could wait a little longer. Fong Ming, not only has your cultivation reached the intermediate stage of Yin-Yang realm, but your soul force has also reached the early stage of 7th grade. Just as Ning Yu was deep in thought, Old Tan's voice sounded again. As long as you take action, I believe you will be able to treat Li Tongtian in no time. I can only say that I will do my best. A few of Li Tongtian's main tendons and meridians have been severed. If we don't want to leave any side effects, we will need a martial artist whose soul force has reached the peak of 7th grade. Fong Ming said in a low voice, Reconnecting the tendons and meridians cannot be sloppy. There are too many people in the capital, and it will inevitably attract attention. In my opinion, it's better to leave the capital and find a quiet place with fewer people to help Li Tongtian reconnect his tendons and meridians. What if the Emperor summons us? Old Tan was still a little worried. You don't have to worry about this. Wan Jingtian said that he sent us to hunt down Ning Yu and Li Tongtian. It's reasonable for us to delay our return to the capital, Fong Ming said. The moment he said, reasonable, Fong Ming picked up Ning Yu, turned around, and dashed into the distance. Old Tan didn't dare to delay. He carried Li Tongtian and followed behind Fong Ming. Sha. After flying for a full hour, Fong Ming and Old Tan finally stopped in a wide open space. Old Tan, put Li Tongtian down. Go and stand guard for me. While I'm treating Li Tongtian, don't let anyone disturb me. Fong Ming casually threw Ning Yu to the side and said to Old Tan, I will need about 2 hours. In other words, within these 2 hours, no one, including you, can disturb me. Otherwise, all our efforts will be in vain. Understood. Old Tan knew that Li Tongtian couldn't die. Therefore, after hearing Fong Ming's words, he carefully put Li Tongtian down and went to stand guard at a distance willingly. Whoosh! Although Old Tan was standing guard at a distance, Fong Ming was still a little worried. With a flick of his sleeve, a vigorous wave of Yuan Qi swept out and formed a Yuan Qi barrier around them. The area covered by this Yuan Qi barrier was relatively large, even surrounding Ningyu. Reconnecting the tendons and meridians was a major project. Fong Ming didn't dare to be sloppy. After the Yuan Qi barrier was set up, Fong Ming separated a bit of soul force into Li Tongtian's body and began to examine it carefully. Chapter 505. Who's scheming against whom? Fong Ming's soul power has reached the early 7th grade. He should be able to stabilize Li Tongtian's condition. Ning Yu's eyes turned solemn as he stared at Li Tongtian, who was breathing weakly. Li Tongtian's face turned pale as a few of his main meridians were ruptured. If Li Tongtian had not sealed his meridians with his soul power, he would have died by now. Sun Jingwen, how much longer do you and the leader of the Hall of Alchemy need to recover? With the strength of Fong Ming's soul power, it was almost impossible for him to heal Li Tongtian. Therefore, Ningyu decided to ask Sun Jingwen and the leader of the Hall of Alchemy for help. However, Sun Jingwen and the leader of the Hall of Alchemy were injured during the battle with Spirit Fox No. 1 and had yet to recover. Half an hour. Give us another half an hour. Sun Jingwen replied in the storage ring. Hurry up. Li Tongtian's condition cannot be delayed for too long. Otherwise, there might be repercussions. Ningyu said in a deep voice. Crack. Meanwhile, in the capital, in the palace, in a certain luxurious room, a clear voice mixed with a gloomy and cold voice resounded. Investigate. We must get to the bottom of this matter. Don't let any suspicious person go. Looking at the familiar figure lying in front of him, Ouyang Ba rose to his feet and smashed the chair he was sitting on into pieces. He said in a cold voice, I'd rather kill 1,000 innocent people than let a single one go. Ouyang Ba was extremely furious at this moment. He did not expect Ouyang Hai to deliver such a grievous news not long after he left the capital. The assassination pavilion really ate a bear's heart and a leopard's gall to actually dare to provoke the emperor. Looking at the dying Spirit Fox No. 1, Ouyang Ba said in a cold voice, Pass down my order. Destroy the assassination pavilion. Your Majesty, you mustn't do that. Hearing Ouyang Ba's words, Wan Jingtian hurriedly said, It's a troubled time now. The corpse sect is eyeing the capital covetously. If we attack the assassination pavilion now, it's very likely that the corpse sect will take advantage of it. Ouyang Ba's face turned gloomy and he remained silent. Seeing that Ouyang Ba did not respond, Wan Jingtian continued, The most important thing now is to find the person who issued the mission in the assassination pavilion. As for the debt with the assassination pavilion, we can settle it slowly in the future. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and investigate. Ouyang Ba berated. Your Majesty, there is some progress in the matter, Wan Jingtian said. All the signs point to 2 people. Who? Ouyang Ba asked. Ningyu and Li Tongtian. Wan Jingtian replied. The 2 of them. This time, Ouyang Ba did not fly into a rage. Instead, he calmed down. Although Ouyang Ba was enraged, he did not lose his rationality. If someone else had gone to the assassination pavilion to issue a mission, he might have believed it. However, he would never believe that it was Ningyu and Li Tongtian. After all, Ningyu and Li Tongtian were smart people. There was no reason for them to go against the royal family. After pondering for a moment, Ouyang Ba said, Pry open Spirit Fox No. 1's mouth. I want to know who issued the mission. Understood. Wan Jingtian had been waiting for this moment. On the way here, he had already discussed it with Spirit Fox No. 1. As long as Spirit Fox number 1 insisted that it was Ning Yu and Li Tong Tian who issued the mission, he would think of a way to save Spirit Fox number 1's life. Although they had discussed it, they still had to put on an act. Therefore, Wan Jingtian raised his right leg and gave Spirit Fox number 1 a heavy kick. He then yelled coldly, "Spirit Fox number 1, this is your only chance to live. Tell me who issued the mission." Whoosh! As soon as Wan Jingtian's foot landed on Spirit Fox number 1's body, Ning Yu, who was in the dense forest outside the capital, had a cold look in his eyes. "Humph, trying to frame me? It's not that easy." Ning Yu let out a cold harumph. He then closed his eyes and began to communicate with the soul force in Spirit Fox number 1's knowledge sea. At this moment, the soul force that Ning Yu had left in Spirit Fox number 1's knowledge sea was playing a crucial role. This was because it could control Spirit Fox number 1's thoughts. The severely injured Spirit Fox number 1's thoughts were no longer under his control. It was completely under Ning Yu's control. "You want me to tell you who issued the mission?" Puffed. Spirit Fox number 1's eyes were filled with malice as he said darkly, You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Wan Jingtian admired Spirit Fox number 1's acting skills. This was because they had not discussed this beforehand. Since Spirit Fox number 1 was putting in so much effort, Wan Jingtian had to cooperate. Crack! However, Wan Jingtian's way of cooperating was a little special. He kicked Spirit Fox number 1's knee and broke it. F*CKU. Even if you kill me, I won't tell you who issued the mission. Spirit Fox number 1 did not compromise. Instead, his eyes turned even colder. "Do you think I won't dare to kill you?" Wan Jingtian took a step forward and said darkly. At this moment, Wan Jingtian even wanted to give Spirit Fox number 1 a thumbs up. This cooperation was really amazing. The more Spirit Fox number 1 resisted, the more Ouyang Ba would believe him when he mentioned that Ning Yu and Li Tong Tian had issued the mission. "Spirit Fox number 1, it's fine if you don't tell me. I can send someone to find out who issued the mission." At this moment, Ouyang Ba spoke in a deep voice. "I can see that you are a talent. I want to give you a chance to make up for your mistakes. If you continue to be stubborn, I don't mind killing you on the spot." As soon as he said the word kill, Ouyang Ba unleashed his aura and pressed it down on Spirit Fox number 1. Puffed. Under the pressure of Ouyang Ba's aura, Spirit Fox number 1 spat out a mouthful of blood. His already pale face turned even paler. "Spirit Fox number 1, this is your last chance. Tell me who issued the mission." "What the F*CK are you talking about?" Wan Jingtian's lips curled into an unnoticeable smile. However, before he could finish his sentence, his eyes widened and his face filled with confusion. It was Tai Sheng and Bao Ming who issued the mission at the Assassin Pavilion. Spirit Fox number 1 wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes looked unnatural, but he still said, "After that, I sent someone to follow them." In the end, the martial artists who contacted them were Fong Ming and Old Tan. Actually, it was no wonder that Wan Jingtian was confused. This was because Spirit Fox number 1's words were completely different from what he had discussed with him. "Slander. This is all slander." After a brief moment of confusion, Wan Jingtian quickly explained to Ouyang Ba, "I swear on my honor that this was not done by Fong Ming and Old Tan." "Hee. You swear on your honor? You're not a good person either. You've known about this for a long time." Spirit Fox number 1 laughed sinisterly. "If I'm not mistaken, Fong Ming and Old Tan should have caught up to Ning Yu and Li Tong Tian. I'm guessing that they are currently fighting." "Wan Jingtian, what's going on? Why haven't Old Tan and Fong Ming returned to see me?" Chapter 506. Courting Death. "Your Majesty, you can't trust the words of the number 1 Spirit Fox. He's slandering me." Wan Jingtian had never expected Ning Yu to be controlling the number 1 Spirit Fox. The words of the number 1 Spirit Fox were exactly what Ning Yu wanted to say. "Your Majesty, Wan Jingtian blurted out. "Answer me." Ouyang Ba interrupted Wan Jingtian and said coldly. It would have been better if Wan Jingtian had not explained himself. As soon as he did, Ouyang Ba became even more suspicious of him. Old Tan and Fong Ming have indeed gone after Ning Yu and the rest. Wan Jingtian answered honestly when he saw that Ouyang Ba was enraged. Wan Jingtian glared at the number one spirit fox as he spoke. At that moment, Wan Jingtian could not wait to kill the number one spirit fox right away. He had worked so hard and ended up being bitten by the number one spirit fox. Wan Jingtian was well aware that he could not show any murderous intent at that moment. Otherwise, Ouyang Ba would assume that something was up. Your Majesty, there's something that I'm not sure if I should say. At that instant, the voice of the number one spirit fox was heard once again, albeit hesitantly. Speak, Ouyang Ba said in a deep voice. The number one spirit fox is afraid that the truth will be exposed, so he left a stream of soul force in my divine sense in an attempt to control me. The number one spirit fox said while clenching his teeth. Ouyang Ba raised his eyebrows and discreetly sent a portion of his senses into the number one spirit fox's divine sense. With a single glance, Ouyang Ba's expression immediately darkened. He had indeed discovered a unique stream of soul force in the number one spirit fox's divine sense. Wan Jingtian, how do you explain the soul force in the number one spirit fox's divine sense? Although he had discovered the soul force in the number one spirit fox's divine sense, Ouyang Ba did not make a decision. He wanted to hear Wan Jingtian's explanation first. There's my soul force in the number one spirit fox's divine sense? Why didn't I know about it? Wan Jingtian was slightly startled and immediately walked toward the number one spirit fox. As he approached the number one spirit fox, Wan Jingtian secretly sent a portion of his senses into the number one spirit fox's divine sense. This is the moment. Wan Jingtian had just unleashed his perception when Ningyu, who was in the dense forest, had a cold expression on his face. He controlled his soul power and began to wreak havoc in the spirit fox number one's sea of consciousness. Pucci, spirit fox number one, was already heavily damaged. How could it withstand Ning Yu's torment? Without a doubt, spirit fox number one spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes rolled back, and he died. What? The sudden death of the spirit fox number one caused Wan Jingtian's heart to sink. At such an important moment, spirit fox number one actually died. Your Majesty, Wan Jingtian knew very well that Ouyang Ba would definitely suspect him after the death of the spiritual fox number one. Hence, he immediately tried to explain himself. Shut up. As expected, before Wan Jingtian could finish his words, Ouyang Ba said coldly, Before we find out the truth, you'll stay in this room. You're not allowed to go anywhere without my permission. As he spoke, Ouyang Ba carried Ouyang Hai in his arms. After pondering for a moment, he carried spirit fox number one and flew out of the room. Who can tell me what the F***CK is going on? Wan Jingtian felt like his lungs were about to explode as he stared at Ouyang Ba's back. He had been thinking of ways to trick Ningyu and Li Tongtian along the way. Who would have thought that he would be tricked by spirit fox number one in the end? However, Wan Jingtian was not too worried. After all, this matter had nothing to do with him. Ouyang Ba would definitely not be able to find out the truth. However, Wan Jingtian did not dare to leave the room. He knew very well that his cultivation level at the advanced stage of Yin-Yang realm was not enough for him to leave the palace. Ningyu had no idea that Wan Jingtian was confined to his room. After the death of spirit fox number one, Ningyu had placed all his attention on Li Tongtian. After a period of treatment by Feng Ming, two of Li Tongtian's meridians had been reconnected. At this moment, Feng Ming was reconnecting Li Tongtian's third meridian, which was also the most important meridian. If it was successful, Feng Ming would be able to overcome this obstacle. If it failed, Feng Ming would be in grave danger. Puffed. The next moment, Li Tongtian spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His aura had dropped to the freezing point. As Feng Ming's soul power was only at the early stage of 7th grade, he had failed at the crucial moment. Whoosh! Since he had failed, Feng Ming waved his hand and removed the Yuan Qi barrier around him. Failed so quickly? Seeing that Feng Ming had removed the Yuan Qi barrier, Old Tan's figure flashed, and he came to Li Tongtian's side. However, After seeing Li Tongtian's pitiful state, Elder Tan's originally excited expression turned into one of astonishment. His mouth gaped open. I've failed. Li Tongtian's main meridian is too difficult to reconnect. With the strength of my soul power, it's very difficult to reconnect it. Fang Ming shook his head and said, if I'm not wrong, Li Tongtian still has an hour to live. In other words, if we can find a martial artist whose soul power is at the peak of 7th grade within this hour, we might be able to save Li Tongtian's life. It took us an hour to get here from the capital. Where do you expect me to find a martial artist whose soul power is at the peak of 7th grade within this hour? Old Tan frowned. Since we can't find one, we might as well kill Li Tongtian and Ningyu. Fang Ming placed his palm on his neck and said coldly, let me think about it. Killing Ningyu was fine, but killing Li Tongtian was something Old Tan was hesitant about. After all, Li Tongtian's backing was very powerful, so powerful that it was comparable to the ancestors of the royal family. What else is there to think about? Li Tongtian is about to die anyway. We're just helping him out. Fang Ming said viciously, when the time comes, we can push his death onto the Spirit Fox team. Let me think about it. Old Tan was still very worried. Li Tongtian's backing was very powerful. Old Tan was afraid that he would find out, so he did not dare to make a move. Old Tan, when did you become so submissive? Even if you don't kill Li Tongtian, he will still die. You better think carefully. I've already connected 2 of Li Tongtian's meridians. If anyone finds out, neither you nor I will have a good ending. Fang Ming continued, the only thing we can do now is to kill Li Tongtian and dispose of his corpse. Dead men tell no tales. Old Tan took a deep breath and murmured, I guess that's the only way. Swoosh. Hearing Elder Tan's words, Fang Ming raised his right hand and chopped at Li Tongtian's neck. You can only blame yourself for offending someone you shouldn't have. Old Tan's fist carried a violent gust of primal chi as he attacked Ningyu on the other side. To Old Tan and Fang Ming, killing Li Tongtian and Ningyu was perhaps the best and most correct choice. Swoosh. However, just as Old Tan reached Ningyu's side, Ningyu's eyes suddenly opened. At the same time, 3 beams of cold light shot out from the storage ring on Ningyu's wrist. One went for Fang Ming, while the other went for Li Tongtian. Chapter 507. White Token, oh no. Sensing the figure behind him, Fang Ming's expression changed drastically. Without any time to think, he retreated immediately. As an yin-yang intermediate stage martial artist, Fang Ming could naturally sense the cultivation of the martial artist behind him. Pinnacle advanced stage, yin-yang advanced stage. Although Fang Ming was puzzled as to why a pinnacle advanced stage, yin-yang advanced stage martial artist would attack him, he was no fool. He knew that he had to retreat now, or the consequences would be dire. However, Fang Ming's retreat was obviously slower. He had only taken a few steps back when the leader of the alchemy division appeared beside him. A fist brought with it a violent gust of primordial chi as it flew towards Fang Ming's head. The punch was heavy and the primordial chi was exceptionally violent. If Fang Ming was unlucky enough to be hit by it, he would be crippled even if he did not die. Damn it! After cursing under his breath, Fang Ming had no choice but to clench his right fist and collide with the punch of the leader of the alchemy division. Crack! As the 2 fists collided, a crisp sound reverberated throughout the area. The leader of the alchemy division's eyes turned cold, and he was about to strike again. Capture him alive. I have something to ask him. Just as the leader of the alchemy division was about to strike again, Ningyu's voice rang in his ears. Slightly taken aback, he immediately changed his attack method. The leader of the alchemy division was a pinnacle advanced stage, yin-yang advanced stage martial artist. If he attacked with all his might, it would not take long for him to kill Fang Ming. Comparatively speaking, capturing Fang Ming alive was more difficult than killing him. The leader of the alchemy division had to change his attack method. Swoosh! On the other side, Sun Jingwen carried Li Tongtian and returned him to the storage ring. Sun Jingwen wanted to help Li Tongtian heal his tendons and meridians. Even though Sun Jingwen's soul power had reached the pinnacle of the 7th grade, it was no exception. Therefore, after Sun Jingwen carried Li Tongtian, he immediately entered the storage ring. Rumble. On the other hand, the Dark Emperor used his killer move, using almost all of his strength in every move. For a moment, he was on par with Elder Tan. Elder Tan had already advanced to the pinnacle advanced stage, Yin-Yang intermediate stage. It was not easy for the Dark Emperor to be on par with him. Solitaire. A draw was not what Ningyu wanted. What he wanted was to kill Elder Tan. Ningyu did not hold back at all. He immediately brandished the red demon sword and slashed out an astonishing sword wave. Not good. When Elder Tan and the Dark Emperor were fighting, he already felt great pressure. Now that Ningyu had joined the battle, his heart sank to the bottom. Elder Tan was well aware of Ningyu's strength. He had just advanced to the middle stage of Yin-Yang realm, and his cultivation had yet to stabilize. How could he be a match for Ningyu? Chi. At the critical moment, Old Tan forcefully forced the Dark Emperor back, and with a flick of his wrist, a cold light flashed out. The cold light dissipated almost as soon as it collided with the sword wave. Moreover, the sword wave didn't seem to be affected much as it went straight for Elder Tan. Elder Tan blocked Solitaire while shouting at Ningyu, "Ningyu, I'm from the royal family. Aren't you afraid of offending the royal family if you dare to kill me?" Only you're allowed to kill me, but I'm not allowed to kill you? Ningyu did not take Elder Tan's threat to heart at all. Instead, he smiled and said, "To tell you the truth, I've long known about your and Wan Jingqian's plan. The reason why I waited until now is to take you down one by one." In the end, Ningyu paused for a moment before continuing, "Don't worry. After you die, I'll get Wan Jingtian to accompany you." "Ningyu, why are you wasting your breath on him?" The Dark Emperor appeared a little impatient as he bellowed. "This place isn't too far from the capital. If we delay any longer, there might be changes." "Understood." Ningyu nodded. Then he gathered the essence in his sea of consciousness into his fist and charged straight at Elder Tan. This place was indeed a little close to the capital, and the battle between the Alchemist Hall Master and Feng Ming was huge. It would inevitably attract the attention of other experts. Originally, Ningyu wanted to leave Feng Ming alive, but from the looks of it now, it was completely unnecessary. Alchemist Hall Master, there's no need to leave him alive. Just kill Feng Ming directly. Ningyu transmitted his voice to the Alchemist Hall Master as he charged at Elder Tan. "If you guys were to fight me from a distance, perhaps I might be a little apprehensive. Since you're courting death yourself, then don't blame me." Looking at the approaching Ningyu, the corners of Elder Tan's mouth curled up slightly as a sinister smile surfaced on his face. Elder Tan was very confident in the essence in his body. In his opinion, Ningyu was courting death by going head-on with him. However, Elder Tan was obviously thinking too much. How is this possible? When his fist collided with Ningyu's fist, an essence chi undulation that was not weaker than is emanated from Ningyu's fist. Sensing the berserk essence chi undulation contained in Ningyu's fist, even if Elder Tan's cultivation reached middle stage Yin-Yang realm, his expression changed drastically at this time. He completely did not dare to believe his eyes. The degree of vastness of Ningyu's essence chi was actually not the slightest bit weaker than his. Swoosh! Just as Elder Tan was astonished by Ningyu's vigorous essence chi, the Dark Emperor had already arrived by his side. An enormous tail swept towards his body ruthlessly. The Dark Emperor's tail was like a rope. The instant it came into contact with Elder Tan's body, it wrapped around him tightly. Goodbye. Seeing the Dark Emperor entangling Elder Tan, Ningyu did not hesitate in the slightest. Wielding the red fiend sword, he stabbed straight out. Puff! The sound of a flying sword stabbing into flesh rang out. "Ningyu, you can't." Elder Tan lowered his head and looked at the red flying sword stabbed into his heart area. His mouth opened and closed. Before he finished speaking, he fell to the ground with a thud. At this moment, the middle stage Yin-Yang realm Elder Tan was directly slain by Ningyu. Pucci. At the same time, on the other side, The Alchemy Master Hall Master immediately launched a powerful attack after receiving Ning Yu's order. In the beginning, Fang Ming could still resist a little, but as time passed, Fang Ming finally could not hold on anymore and was punched in the head by the Alchemy Master Hall Master, dying on the spot. Swoosh! After Fang Ming died, the Dark Emperor turned into an afterimage and appeared beside him in an instant. Following that, the Dark Emperor started searching on Fang Ming's body. After a while, the Dark Emperor returned to Ning Yu's side. It was just that in his hand, there was a white token. Swoosh! The Dark Emperor casually threw the token to Ning Yu, then started searching on Elder Tan's body again. Access token. The few black words on the token attracted Ning Yu's attention. Fang Ming's cultivation is at the middle stage yin-yang realm. Since even he needs a token to enter a place, it must be a forbidden ground or a special place. Ning Yu frowned slightly and muttered, "If I had known earlier, I would have left one person alive. This way, I can also force out where the token goes." Ning Yu, what do you think this is? Chapter 508. News of Danger, Black Pearl? Ning Yu glanced over and saw a black pearl in the Dark Emperor's hand. The pearl was around the size of half a fist and contained a strong fluctuation of vitality. After receiving the black pearl, Ning Yu took a closer look at it. There's a seal on the surface of the pearl. It won't be easy to break it in a short period of time. Ning Yu shook his head and said. Ning Yu probed the black pearl with his soul energy and discovered that there was a seal on the surface of the pearl. The seal was unique. With the strength of his peak 5th grade soul energy, it would be difficult to break it in a short period of time. It's no longer safe here. Let's head to the capital first. After some thought, Ning Yu decided to return to the capital. After all, a huge battle had just taken place here. Not long after, a huge group of experts would arrive. At that time, it would be very difficult for him to escape. What about the two of them? The Dark Emperor pointed at Fang Ming and Old Tan, who were long dead, and asked. That's troublesome, Ning Yu said in a deep voice. Fang Ming and Old Tan were from the royal family, and Ouyang Ba already knew that they were after him and Li Tongtian. If the two of them died, Ouyang Ba would immediately suspect him. We might as well go all the way and destroy their corpses. Ning Yu said coldly after a moment of silence. Understood. As soon as Ning Yu finished his sentence, the Dark Emperor appeared beside Old Tan in a flash. Following that, the Dark Emperor opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of liquid. PST. The liquid was black. As soon as it came into contact with Old Tan's body, he disappeared as if he had evaporated into thin air. Holy shit, I didn't expect you to have such a move. Ning Yu was dumbfounded by the Dark Emperor's actions. Since when did the sky-devouring hounds have such an ability? The liquid in their bodies had a strong corrosive effect that could instantly corrode an intermediate-stage yin-yang realm martial artist. PST. Just as Ning Yu was shocked, the Dark Emperor appeared beside Fang Ming and spat out a mouthful of black liquid. Fang Ming turned into a puff of gas and evaporated. Go! After a brief moment of shock, Ning Yu's eyes turned cold. He immediately leaped up and flew toward the capital. Kid, wait for me. Seeing that Ning Yu had left, the Dark Emperor did not dare to delay. He hurriedly turned into an afterimage and followed closely behind Ning Yu. After all, the Dark Emperor was the emperor of the Heaven-Swallowing Dog clan. When Ning Yu left, his sharp senses discovered that there were several groups of experts rushing over from afar. Even the weakest among them was at the early stage of yin-yang realm. One of them had even reached the peak of yin-yang realm. The Dark Emperor could slightly contend against a martial artist in the middle stage of the yin-yang realm, but against a martial artist at the peak of the late stage of the yin-yang realm, the Dark Emperor could only die. Kacha! Not long after Ning Yu and the Dark Emperor left, several void spaces were suddenly torn open, and several martial artists appeared. After these cultivators appeared, they did not greet each other. Instead, they unleashed their perception and carefully explored the area. Voila! A moment later, the surrounding martial artists dispersed, including the martial artist at the peak of the late stage of the yin-yang realm. However, there was an old man standing in midair with a slight frown. There was no fluctuation of primordial chi around the old man, and his slightly turbid eyes shone brightly. It seems like the aura of the heaven-swallowing dog. Interesting, it's getting more and more interesting. Who knows, I might be able to gain something special from this trip to the capital. The Alchemy Union's alchemy competition is in 3 days. I have to go down and prepare. Buzz. As soon as the old man finished speaking, his body gradually became illusory. In the end, he merged with the void and disappeared. Swoosh! At the main entrance of the capital, a figure appeared. Upon closer inspection, the figure was none other than Ningyu. After tidying up his clothes, Ningyu strode towards the capital. The Dark Emperor did not follow behind Ningyu. Instead, he entered the storage ring. Since the third prince, Ouyang Hai, was killed, the imperial family would definitely send experts to patrol the capital. If the Dark Emperor appeared in the capital again, it would be very dangerous. Ningyu did not want to take this unnecessary risk. After entering the capital, Ningyu did not immediately return to Danwu College. Instead, he found a random restaurant and sat down. Special times called for special treatment. Ningyu wanted to first understand the situation in the capital. Restaurants had always been crowded with people, so it was the easiest place to obtain gossip. Have you heard? The mysterious force in Shuiyu Pavilion has spread the word that Lu Wei has to return to Shuiyu Pavilion by tomorrow night. If not, her parents will be killed. As expected, just as Ningyu sat down, he heard a few burly men chatting at the next table. The one who spoke was an early primal core stage man. He sighed and said, Shuiyu Pavilion used to be the top force in the capital. Who would have thought that in such a short period of time, it would decline to such an extent that even its headquarters have been taken? That's right. Beside the burly man, a bearded man said regretfully, Lu Wei was originally the daughter of Shuiyu Pavilion. Now that Shuiyu Pavilion is in such a decline and her parents are under the control of others, her days will not be easy. Even if it's not easy, she has to. I heard that Lu Wei is in Danwu College. If it were me, I would definitely not return to Shuiyu Pavilion. After all, where there's life, there's hope, another mid-primal core stage warrior said. Things are not that simple, the early primal core stage warrior said. The burly man at the early stage of the primal core realm said, this is a matter of life and death for the family. If Lu Swan flinched, he will be reviled by everyone. Cursed is better than dying in battle, the bearded man said. Oh yes, who are the people in Shuiyu Pavilion? You know, Lu Wei is in Danwu College. Are they not afraid of offending Danwu College by doing this? The mid-primal core stage warrior suddenly asked. Haha, you think too much. The early primal core stage warrior laughed and said, I have received news that Lu Wei was only placed in Danwu College by Ningyu. She has nothing to do with Danwu College. I see, but I don't know if Ningyu will show up, the bearded man said. Now that things have come to this, Ningyu will not be able to help. The early primal core stage warrior looked around and said in a low voice, I heard that among the mysterious people in Shuiyu Pavilion, there are 2 late yin-yang stage warriors. Hearing the words of the early primal core stage warrior, the other 2 warriors could not help but gasp. 2 late stage yin-yang realm martial artists. This force was truly terrifying. Crack! Just as these big men were discussing, a kacha sound rang out. Then, a cultivator rushed out of the restaurant. Who was he? The early primal core stage warrior asked. I'm not sure. He seems to be at the peak of the true martial realm, the bearded man said doubtfully. The peak of the true martial realm. Could it be Ningyu? Chapter 509. To turn nothingness into reality whoosh. The few men in the restaurant had guessed correctly. The martial artist who had rushed out of the restaurant was indeed Ningyu. After leaving the restaurant, Ningyu rushed to Danwu College without stopping. Lu Wei's cultivation was only at the Xiantian realm. How could they let her return to Snow Domain Pavilion to face that mysterious force alone? There was only death awaiting them. Ningyu would never allow it. Hence, Ningyu's speed was very fast. He wanted to return to the Dan Wu Academy at the first moment to stop Lu and I. Whoosh! However, after flying for a while, Ningyu stopped. No, I can't go back now. Ningyu's expression was slightly solemn. Although he could stop Lu Wei from returning to Danwu College, this matter was likely to leave a scar in Lu Wei's heart. In the future, it would be very difficult for Lu Wei to make any further progress on the path of cultivation. After thinking for a while, Ningyu decided to go to the Snow Pavilion to find out what kind of people were inside. Ningyu didn't immediately go to the Snow Domain Pavilion. After all, according to the big men, there were at least 2 Enyang late-stage martial artists in the Snow Domain Pavilion. Tomorrow night was the appointed time between the mysterious force and Lu Wei, so Ningyu still had a lot of time. Ningyu decided to personally refine the essence transformation pill and then attempt to break through to the origin core realm. If he advanced to the origin core realm, Ningyu could even withstand a few moves from a late-stage Enyang realm martial artist. Without hesitation, Ningyu immediately turned into a medicinal herb store and bought 10 sets of medicinal herbs to refine the vitality transformation pill. After buying the herbs, Ningyu strolled around the capital a few times and bought a slightly higher quality alchemy furnace. After doing all this, Ningyu made sure that no one was following him before entering an inn. Ningyu set up a barrier around the room, then took out the 10 sets of Huayuan Dan's medicinal ingredients and placed them on the ground. I wonder if this cauldron can last until I finish concocting all 10 cauldrons of origin transformation pills. Ningyu casually threw the cauldron into the air, grabbed a medicinal ingredient with his left hand, and threw it into the cauldron. The origin transformation pill was a peak grade 5 medicinal pill. There was a special characteristic when refining it, and that was that the temperature required was very high, very high. It was very difficult for an ordinary pill furnace to last until the pill was formed. The quality of the pill furnace Ningyu bought was not bad, but Ningyu was still a little worried. After all, he was refining a transcendent grade Yuan transformation pill, and the temperature required was even higher. Chi-chi. As soon as the pill was thrown into the furnace, a blue flame appeared on the fingertip of Ningyu's right hand, constantly burning the bottom of the furnace. As the temperature at the bottom of the cauldron continued to rise, the first medicinal herb was quickly burned away, turning into a drop of crystal clear liquid. The success of the first step caused Ningyu to heave a sigh of relief. A good start was half the battle. Following that, Ningyu grabbed another medicinal herb and threw it into the cauldron. This time, the time taken for the medicinal herb to be refined was clearly much faster. In just 10 seconds, the medicinal herb was refined into a drop of liquid. Voila! The first 2 medicinal herbs were just a test for Ningyu. Following that, he increased the speed at which he threw the medicinal herbs into the cauldron. Basically, every 10 seconds, he would throw a medicinal herb into the cauldron. Chi-chi, chi-chi. The sound of chi-chi could be heard incessantly. Drop after drop of liquid was quickly refined and stuck to the sides of the cauldron. Go! After about 10 minutes, Ningyu let out a low shout. Then, the soul force in his body rushed into the cauldron and began the second round of refining the liquid. This time, Ningyu was very attentive. Because it concerned the final quality of the pill, Ningyu had no choice but to be extremely careful. After another 10 minutes, Ningyu withdrew his soul force from the cauldron. At the same time, the azure spiritual fire on Ningyu's fingertip burned even brighter as he worked hard to raise the temperature of the cauldron. Time passed minute by minute. Ningyu did not dare to have the slightest bit of carelessness. He did not even bother to wipe the beads of sweat that had formed on his forehead. Rise! After another 10 minutes, Ningyu's right hand slapped the cauldron fiercely. The lid of the cauldron was lifted in an instant. Then, a round white medicinal pill burst out from the cauldron. Ha! Ningyu's eyes and hands were sharp. In an instant, he caught the white medicinal pill in his hand. Supreme Grade Energy Transformation Pill. Looking at the white medicinal pill lying on his palm, Ningyu was slightly disappointed. Forget it. It's better than nothing. Let's hope that the next 9 batches can produce Supreme Grade Energy Transformation Pills. Ningyu found a jade bottle and stored the supreme grade energy transformation pill inside. He then threw it to the side and started to refine the second cauldron of essence transformation pills. If Ning Yu's actions were seen by outsiders, even if it was a Tier 6 alchemist, they would have the impulse to beat him up. Although the essence transformation pill was only a peak Tier 5 medicinal pill, ordinary Tier 6 alchemists did not dare to say that they could refine it with 100% success rate. It would be incredible if they could succeed once out of 10 batches. But Ning Yu refined a supreme grade energy transformation pill on his first batch and was still not satisfied. Swish! The first batch of essence transformation pills allowed Ning Yu to have a very deep understanding of cauldrons. Hence, for the second batch of essence transformation pills, Ning Yu obviously increased his speed. Originally, he needed 30 minutes to form the pill. This time, Ning Yu used 20 minutes to refine the essence transformation pill. Supreme grade energy transformation pill. Without a doubt, for the second batch of essence transformation pills, Ning Yu refined a supreme grade 1. With the first batch of supreme grade energy transformation pills, there was a second batch, a third batch. Due to the refinement speed becoming increasingly faster, the last 8 batches of essence transformation pills, Ning Yu used 2 hours to refine all of them. Furthermore, all of them were supreme grade energy transformation pills. Crack! When the last batch of essence transformation pills was formed, the pill furnace that Ning Yu purchased also shattered with a loud bang. The shattering of the pill furnace did not arouse too much of Ning Yu's attention, because the current him was adjusting his mental state, planning on consuming medicinal pills to assault the origin core realm. Ning Yu spent 2 hours to adjust his mental state to the peak. Shortly after, he grabbed a transcendent grade essence transformation pill and directly threw it into his mouth. Buzz! When a medicinal pill entered his stomach, Ning Yu only felt a surge of scorching heat wreaking havoc in his body, as if his entire body was being scorched by a blazing fire. The scorching heat merely lasted for a moment, then disappeared. Following the disappearance of the scorching heat, a surge of terrifying energy poured into Ning Yu's sea of consciousness, fusing together with a virtual image of a golden core. Bang! The instant the two fused together, a muffled sound rang out, and then Ning Yu's mouth slightly opened, because he discovered that the virtual image of a golden core in his sea of consciousness had actually turned from illusion to reality, transforming into a real golden core. The virtual image of a golden core transforming into a real golden core was not frightening. What was frightening was that Ning Yu was still at the peak of the true martial realm and did not have the slightest intention of advancing to the origin core realm. Possessing a physical golden core, yet having a cultivation at the peak of the true martial realm, Ning Yu might be the first person in history to do so. Don't tell me that I have to transform the remaining 6 virtual golden cores into physical golden cores in order to break through to the origin core realm. Suddenly, Ning Yu seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes revealed a look of disbelief. Chapter 510. Chapter 510 of the WRL, the Ultimate Realm, an illusory golden core, was not the same as a physical golden core. The two could not be mentioned in the same breath. To Ning Yu, as long as he could have 7 physical golden cores in the primal core realm, he could even compete with a late-stage yin-yang realm martial artist. To be able to compete with a late-stage yin-yang realm martial artist while still in the primal core realm, even Ning Yu had not seen such a powerful martial artist in his previous life. Taking a deep breath, Ning Yu had a serious look in his eyes. Then, Ning Yu took out another supreme Yuan transformation pill and popped it into his mouth. This time, Ning Yu did not wait for the Yuan transformation pill to merge with the illusory golden core. Instead, he initiated the spiritual transformation method and began to refine the pill. Boom! After about 3 minutes, a dull sound was heard. Without a doubt, another illusory golden core in Ning Yu's consciousness had turned into a physical golden core. 2 supreme Yuan transformation pills had turned 2 illusory golden cores into physical golden cores, which gave Ning Yu a huge boost. Next, Ningyu continued to swallow Yuan transformation pills, and the illusory golden cores in his consciousness also continued to turn into physical golden cores. Boom, boom, boom. Not long after, the 7 illusory golden cores in Ningyu's consciousness had all turned into physical golden cores. Boom! The moment the last illusory golden core turned into a physical golden core, an earth-shattering sound rang out in the room. After that, a monstrous, imposing aura surged out from Ningyu's body and charged out. Crack! Crack! This aura hit the enchantment around the room and directly shattered it. Swoosh! In the next moment, the aura suddenly disappeared. Ningyu's eyes opened abruptly, and there was a faint look of shock on his face. Mid-primal core realm. At this moment, Ningyu had not only advanced from the peak of the true martial realm to the primal core realm, but he had also directly surpassed the early primal core realm and soared to the mid-primal core realm. Although the mid-primal core stage was not considered very high in the capital, it was enough for Ningyu. Now that his cultivation had advanced to the mid-primal core stage, coupled with his 7 golden essences, Ningyu could even kill a late yin-yang stage martial artist. Supreme 9 Purities Sword Technique. Ningyu was not overwhelmed by the increase in his cultivation. On the contrary, he was very calm. The next moment, he drew out the Red Demon Sword and decided to cultivate the 6th form of the 9 Purities Supreme Sword Technique, Solitaire. Solitaire had 4 realms: initial success, middle success, great success, and ultimate. Right now, Ningyu had only cultivated Solitaire to the great accomplishment realm. If he could cultivate it to the ultimate realm, his trip to Snow Domain Pavilion would be much safer. Chi-Chi. After experiencing so many things, Ningyu had a deeper understanding of Solitaire. He waved the red demon sword in his hand continuously, and waves of sword energy flew out, forming a sword wave array in the air. After advancing to the mid-primal core stage, the density of the Yuan Qi in Ningyu's consciousness had become very frightening. Originally, he could only use Solitaire a few times, but now he could use it without restraint, and he did not have to worry about running out Yuan Qi. No. If I continue to cultivate like this, it is almost impossible to cultivate Solitaire to the ultimate realm. After a while, Ningyu stopped. The power of Solitaire at the Great Accomplishment realm was already very frightening. Logically speaking, the ultimate realm Solitaire. That's right. Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something. He raised his eyebrows and immediately waved the red demon sword in his hand. At the same time, a steady stream of Yuan Qi flowed through Ningyu's wrist and into the red demon sword. Buzz, buzz. As Yuan Qi continued to flow into the sword, the red demon sword made a slight vibrating sound. Go! With a low shout from Ningyu, an extremely powerful wave of sword energy appeared in the air. Swoosh! As soon as the wave of sword energy appeared, a figure rushed out from the storage ring on Ningyu's wrist and came into direct contact with the wave of sword energy. F*CK. The figure that rushed out from the storage ring was none other than the Dark Emperor. Ningyu, what the hell are you doing? The Dark Emperor could not help but curse as he looked at the wave of sword energy that was approaching him and the violent Yuan Qi that it contained. However, the Dark Emperor used a secret technique to block the wave of sword energy as he growled. Bang! Although the Dark Emperor had already used all his strength to block it, he had still underestimated the power of the wave of sword energy. Without a doubt, when the wave of sword energy collided with the Dark Emperor's body, it sent him flying. Not bad. Ningyu nodded in satisfaction as he stared at the Dark Emperor, who had fallen flat on his face. Hearing Ningyu's words, the Dark Emperor gritted his teeth and said, Ningyu, if you don't give me an explanation today, I won't let you off. Just a moment ago, the Dark Emperor received a message from Ningyu, saying that there was a great opportunity for him. Hearing that there was an opportunity, the Dark Emperor naturally flew out of the storage ring without hesitation. Who would have thought that Ningyu would make a fool out of him? Dark Emperor, how's the power of my move? Ningyu did not care about the Dark Emperor's complaints and asked, How's the power? The Dark Emperor's expression was terrible as he berated. Even I almost failed. How can it be weak? However, what Ningyu said next left the Dark Emperor dumbfounded. He had the urge to slap Ningyu. I'm relieved to hear that. To tell you the truth, this is only 30% of its power. When Ningyu said that, the Dark Emperor opened his mouth and wanted to say something. However, when he saw Ningyu's serious look, he swallowed his words. The Dark Emperor had seen this move of Ningyu's before. Compared to before, the power of the sword wave today was clearly much stronger. Could it really be, as Ningyu had said, that he had only used 30% of its power? Dark Emperor, make a trip to the Snow Domain Pavilion. Right at this moment, Ningyu put away the red demon sword and dashed out of the room in a flash. Behind Ningyu, the Dark Emperor pondered for a moment before following closely. The Dark Emperor was rather worried about this trip to the Snow Domain Pavilion. The Dark Emperor had heard the conversation between the burly men in the inn clearly and had a rough idea of the strength of the mysterious men in the Snow Domain Pavilion. Although Ningyu had advanced to mid-stage primordial core realm and the power of his sword wave was strong, the most important thing was that the alchemy master was treating Li Tongtian with Sun Jiangwen. In other words, the two of them could not help much at this moment. He had to rely on himself and Ningyu for everything. That's right, there should be the red demon as well. Just like outside the capital, in order not to expose the Dark Emperor, Ningyu sent the Dark Emperor into his storage ring the moment they left the inn. The Snow Domain Pavilion was extremely dangerous, and keeping the Dark Emperor in his storage ring would serve as a trump card. Given the Dark Emperor's strength, he might be able to pose a threat to late-stage Yin-Yang realm cultivators if he caught them off guard. The Snow Domain Pavilion was not too far from the inn that Ningyu was staying at. Therefore, it did not take long for Ningyu to arrive at the Snow Domain Pavilion. Chapter 511. Hiding. Ningyu had chosen a good place to hide. He could easily watch the people entering and exiting the Snow Pavilion, and he could also hide himself well. After all, there were many Yin-Yang stage warriors in the Snow Pavilion, and if Ningyu were to barge in now, the situation would be very dangerous. Choosing to wait here might be the best choice. After about half an hour, an early primal core warrior walked out of the Snow Pavilion, looked left and right, and then flew off into the distance. Looking at the departing warrior, Ningyu frowned slightly, but did not move. After another half an hour, this time, two late primal core warriors walked out of the Snow Pavilion. Ningyu remained where he was, not moving. In the next 2 to 3 hours, there were no less than 10 warriors going in and out of the main entrance of the Snow Pavilion. However, these warriors did not attract much of Ningyu's attention, and he continued to wait tirelessly. Swish! Suddenly, a warrior in a black robe attracted Ningyu's attention. Early primal core stage. Ningyu sensed something unusual about the warrior in the black robe. Although the warrior in the black robe only seemed to be in the early primal core stage, based on Ningyu's years of experience, the warrior in the black robe should not be lower than the yin-yang stage. After a moment's thought, Ningyu moved his feet and carefully followed behind the warrior in the black robe. Ningyu followed very carefully, concealing his entire aura, afraid of being discovered by the warrior in the black robe. The warrior in the black robe did not seem to notice Ningyu. He first circled the capital, then left. What are you doing outside the capital? Ningyu hesitated for a second, then gritted his teeth and followed closely. After all, he had already followed for so long. If he did not follow, it would not be right. Furthermore, the warrior in the black robe was perhaps the only way to understand the internal situation of the Snow Pavilion, and Ningyu did not want to give up such a great opportunity. Swish! Outside the capital, the black-robed cultivator's speed was very fast. In almost an instant, he had already traversed several dozen feet. Judging from his speed, his cultivation should be between early stage and mid-stage yin-yang realm. Ningyu frowned slightly as he looked at the black-robed cultivator in front of him. The black-robed martial artist's speed was indeed very fast. Even though Ningyu had advanced to the middle primal core stage, he could only follow behind him. Voila! However, Just as Ningyu was pondering the black-robed cultivator's identity, the black-robed cultivator's body froze in midair. Seeing the black-robed cultivator stop, Ningyu hurriedly stopped and hid under the nearest tree. "You've followed me for so long. Can you come out now?" The black-robed cultivator looked in the direction of Ningyu before saying, "A little primal core child is quite bold." Whoosh! Since he had already been discovered by the black-robed cultivator, Ningyu simply walked out from behind the giant tree. Seeing Ningyu come out, the black-robed cultivator sized up Ningyu. While the black-robed cultivator was sizing up Ningyu, Ningyu was also sizing up the black-robed cultivator. Late-stage yin-yang realm cultivation. Feeling the powerful aura emanating from the black-robed cultivator, Ningyu's eyes narrowed and revealed a serious expression. Late-stage yin-yang realm martial artists were very strong. With Ningyu's current strength, although he could contend against them, if the other party wanted to leave, Ningyu would not be able to do anything. Moreover, late-stage yin-yang realm martial artists were not to be trifled with. If they had a few more powerful trump cards, the person who would fail today would probably be Ningyu. To be able to cultivate to the mid-stage Yuan Dan stage at such a young age, you are indeed not simple. The black-robed cultivator stared at Ningyu as an evil smile formed on his lips. "Tell me who ordered you to follow me, and I can leave your corpse intact." In the black-robed cultivator's opinion, no matter how bold a mid-stage Yuan Dan stage martial artist was, he would not dare to follow him. Unless this mid-stage Yuan Dan stage martial artist was ordered by a strong practitioner to follow him. Upon hearing the black-robed cultivator's words, Ningyu's eyes turned, before he calmly said, "If I tell you who the martial artist behind me is, can you spare my life?" "Ha! In this world, no one has ever dared to bargain with me." The black-robed cultivator smiled slightly, then changed the topic as he coldly said, "Because those who dared to bargain with me have all died at my hands. If that's the case, I could be considered lucky to still be alive after bargaining with you." Ningyu shrugged his shoulders and said, "To tell you the truth, the martial artist behind me is very powerful. It's Wan Jingtian, late yin-yang stage cultivation." Wan Jingtian. As Ningyu finished speaking, the black-robed cultivator's eyes revealed a vicious look. At the same time, he could not help but clench his fists. Actually, when Ningyu had said those words, he had been paying attention to the black-robed cultivator's movements. When he saw the expression on the black-robed cultivator's face, as well as his tightly clenched fists, Ningyu knew that the black-robed cultivator definitely knew Wan Jingtian. It seemed like they did not have a good relationship. "What proof do you have that you're a martial artist sent by Wan Jingtian?" Taking a deep breath, the black-robed cultivator said in a low voice. The black-robed cultivator was not stupid. Naturally, he would not listen to Ningyu's one-sided words. Without absolute proof, he would definitely not believe Ningyu's words. "This is the best proof." His eyes turning, Ningyu took out the white token he had obtained from Feng Ming and waved it in his hand. The entry token. Seeing the white token in Ningyu's hand, the black-robed cultivator's face completely darkened. "Wan Jingtian actually gave you something as important as the entry token. It seems like you were right." The black-robed cultivator said coldly, "The entry token is such an important thing. It is a complete waste to leave it with you. I will temporarily take care of it for you." Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, the black-robed cultivator waved his hands in front of him, tore through the void, and entered. In the next instant, the black-robed cultivator appeared beside Ningyu. His right hand quickly shot out and grabbed the white token in Ningyu's hand. "I knew you would do this." The black-robed cultivator's sudden attack was completely within Ningyu's expectations. However, Ningyu did not have the slightest bit of carelessness. After all, the black-robed cultivator was at the late yin-yang stage. A slight carelessness could lead to unpredictable danger. Solitaire. To Ningyu, it was fine when he did not attack, but when he attacked, it was a killing move. The essence energy in his sea of consciousness surged wildly into the red demon's sword. In the next moment, a shocking sword wave separated from the red demon's sword and slashed at the black-robed cultivator. Damn it! The black-robed cultivator had not expected Ningyu to suddenly attack him. Furthermore, Ningyu's move was so powerful that he had to retreat immediately. However, in order to obtain the white token, the black-robed cultivator was very close to Ningyu. Trying to dodge solitaire at such a close distance was harder than ascending to heaven. Chapter 512. Trap information. The moment the fist collided with the sword wave, the expression on the black-robed cultivator's face changed as an ominous feeling arose in his heart. Take another punch. Rotating palm. At this moment, Ningyu pushed his palm forward. The palm, which was almost solid, slashed towards the black-robed cultivator's neck. After advancing to the intermediate Yuan dance stage, Ningyu's control over the rotating palm had improved. It could be said that the power of the rotating palm that Ningyu used now was much stronger than when he used the reincarnation palm. Damn it! As he was using all his strength to block solitaire, the black-robed cultivator could only choose to retreat and avoid the incoming palm. How could Ningyu let go of such a good opportunity? Reincarnation palm. Following Ningyu's growl, a palm print that wasn't any weaker than the rotating wheel palm appeared in the sky. Oh no! The black-robed cultivator's senses were strong, and he could naturally tell that the second palm was much stronger than the first. At this crucial moment, the black-robed cultivator gave up on the rotating palm and used all his strength to block the reincarnation palm. Without a doubt, the black-robed cultivator's chest was hit by the rotating palm, and his body was on the verge of collapse. However, the black-robed cultivator's decision was obviously correct. Giving up on the rotating palm allowed him to block the reincarnation palm's overwhelming power. Otherwise, Ningyu's reincarnation palm alone would have been enough to severely injure him. However, even so, the black-robed cultivator's breathing was slightly weak. It was obvious that he had suffered a significant injury. Good, very good. Ever since I advanced to the yin-yang stage, you're the first person in the Yuan Dan stage to be able to injure me. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the black-robed cultivator's face turned serious. Although he was careless, the fact that the warrior in front of him could injure him at the intermediate Yuan Dan stage meant that he had some skills. Oh, in that case, I could be considered to be relatively lucky. Ningyu did not take the black-robed cultivator's praise to heart. Instead, he nodded his head and replied, "Hee, you're indeed very lucky." The black-robed cultivator first smiled slightly, then said coldly, "Because on this day next year, it will be the anniversary of your death." Noisy. If you want to fight, then fight. Why are you so long-winded? Ningyu said impatiently. Through the exchange just now, Ningyu had basically determined the black-robed martial artist's strength. He was on par with him. Since the two sides were equally matched, the one who had the upper hand was definitely Ningyu. Because the Dark Emperor was still in the storage ring, with the help of the Dark Emperor, Ningyu was confident that he could slowly grind the black-robed cultivator to death. You. Hearing Ningyu's words, the black-robed cultivator's face turned very gloomy. However, the black-robed cultivator did not lose his mind. He did not launch another attack just because of Ningyu's arrogant words. What the black-robed martial artist was afraid of was the possibility of hidden martial artists in the surroundings. In his opinion, it was impossible for Ningyu to follow him alone. "Tell me, why are you following me?" Taking a deep breath, the black-robed martial artist quietly released his perception, wanting to detect if there were any hidden martial artists in the surroundings. "I already said, it was one Jingtian who told me to follow you." Ningyu had already thought of a countermeasure in his heart, so he calmly said, "The Emperor suspects that you are colluding with the corpse sect." "Impossible." Before Ningyu finished speaking, the black-robed martial artist scolded. "Not long ago, the Emperor left the Snow Domain Pavilion and ordered us to send Lu Wei to the palace. How could he suspect us?" Sure enough, the mysterious force of the Snow Domain Pavilion is related to the royal family. Ningyu's heart skipped a beat, but he did not show it. These words were all told to me by Wan Jingtian. I was only responsible for passing on the message. That's right. Wan Jingtian should be in the palace right now. It is impossible for him to leave the palace in a short period of time because, speaking up to here, Ningyu paused for a moment and then smiled. The emperor wants to promote Wan Jingtian to the peak of the yin-yang stage as soon as possible so that he can replace you. Oomph. A load of nonsense, a load of nonsense. The black-robed martial artist clenched his fists tightly, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. If what the mid-primal core martial artist said was true, then the situation was very serious for them. However, the black-robed martial artist was after all a late yin-yang stage martial artist, so naturally he would not easily believe what Ningyu said. What does it have to do with me, whether you believe it or not? Ningyu shrugged his shoulders and said nonchalantly, to tell you the truth, once Wan Jingtian reaches the peak of the yin-yang stage, he will completely take over the Snow Domain Pavilion. Whether you stay or leave will be up to him. Hee, your words have exposed yourself. Hearing Ningyu's words, the black-robed martial artist laughed brightly. After laughing, the black-robed martial artist's tone became cold as he said, even if Wan Jingtian reaches the peak of the yin-yang stage, he cannot completely take over the Snow Domain Pavilion. Didn't Wan Jingtian tell you that there are 4 late yin-yang stage martial artists in the Snow Domain Pavilion? The black-robed martial artist continued. Besides the 4 late yin-yang stage martial artists, there is another peak yin-yang stage martial artist in the Snow Domain Pavilion. Would Wan Jingtian dare to force his way into the Snow Domain Pavilion? As he spoke, the black-robed martial artist stared hard into Ningyu's eyes, hoping to find some clues. But unfortunately, Ningyu's expression was as tranquil as an ancient well, and it didn't change in the slightest. On the contrary, Ningyu said, if all the late yin-yang stage martial artists in the Snow Domain Pavilion are of the same level as you, then Wan Jingtian could take over the Snow Domain Pavilion. Ha ha ha. The black-robed martial artist laughed maniacally and said, the Snow Domain Pavilion has already set up 3 lines of defense. Wan Jingtian's token only allows him to pass through the first 2. What right does he have to take over the Snow Domain Pavilion? Forget it. There is no point in talking to you about this. Since you have chosen to follow me, you should be prepared to be killed. As he spoke, the black-robed martial artist rose from the ground and once again launched a powerful attack on Ningyu. Although he did not believe Ningyu's words, the black-robed martial artist secretly believed him. He had to quickly return to the Snow Domain Pavilion and think of a way to contact the peak yin-yang stage martial artist in the 3rd line of defense. He did not want to be stabbed in the back by Wan Jingtian. Thank you for telling me so much about the Snow Domain Pavilion. Ningyu smiled faintly at the black-robed cultivator. Then he stomped on the ground and immediately retreated. Trying to run? Not so easy. Seeing Ningyu's actions, the black-robed martial artist snorted coldly. His hands tore through the void and entered. In the next moment, the black-robed martial artist appeared beside Ningyu. Eat my fist. After appearing, the black-robed martial artist's fist brought with it an extremely violent Yuan Qi gale and unscrupulously punched at Ningyu's chest. Dark Emperor, if you don't show yourself now, when will you? However, when the black-robed martial artist's fist was 20 centimeters away from Ningyu's chest, Ningyu shouted. Chapter 513. Destroying the Evidence, Grandfather? You are, oh no. Hearing the Dark Emperor's words, the black-robed cultivator was stunned at first, and then his expression changed, because he sensed a black figure flashing out from Ningyu's spatial ring, and it was attacking him at an extremely shocking speed. Just like last time, at such a close distance, it was too late for the black-robed cultivator to dodge. He could only meet the black figure head-on. Bam! In the next moment, the black-robed cultivator gave up on attacking Ningyu and turned his fist to collide with the black figure. Whoosh! However, the black-robed cultivator's expression changed the moment his fist came into contact with the black figure. It's actually a black dog. It was no wonder that the black-robed cultivator's expression changed. The moment the two collided, he realized that the black figure was not a human, but a black dog. Although it was a hurried battle, if he were to be defeated by a dog, the black-robed cultivator would probably find a block of tofu to kill himself. What kind of world is this? It's one thing for an intermediate primal core cultivator to be so arrogant, but even a dog is so arrogant and calls itself grandfather? I think it's more like a dead dog. The black-robed cultivator gritted his teeth in anger. After hastily receiving the Dark Emperor's blow, he did not stop and immediately engaged in a fierce battle with the Dark Emperor. After all, the Dark Emperor was only a peak primal core cultivator. Initially, he was able to hold his own against the black-robed cultivator, but as time passed, the Dark Emperor began to show signs of weakness. Bam! Suddenly, the black-robed cultivator seized the opportunity and punched the Dark Emperor in the chest, sending him flying several feet away. Ningyu, are you King ready? The Dark Emperor shouted at Ningyu before he fell. Whoosh! On the other side, Ningyu's tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and he slowly exhaled a mouthful of foul air. Come out! Accompanied by a low shout from Ningyu, the 7 golden cores in Ningyu's consciousness all flew out. In midair, the 7 golden cores lined up in a row was exceptionally spectacular. Solitaire. When all the golden cores appeared, Ningyu tossed the red demon sword in his hand into the center of the golden cores. The vital energy within the 7 golden elixirs surged out and flowed into the red demon sword. As the yuan qi in the red fiend increased, the red fiend did something terrifying. Without Ningyu controlling it, it slashed out a shocking sword wave. Chi-chi. The sword ripples were abnormally huge, as thick as 3 to 4 waists. The friction between them and the air produced a chi-chi sound. What's wrong with this world? Am I too crazy, or am I too outdated? Black Robe's face was filled with disbelief as he looked at the sword ripples approaching him. It was reasonable for a dog to have super strong combat power. Now, even a flying sword could slash out a sword wave on its own, which made him feel a little incredulous. However, what surprised him even more were the 7 Jindan in midair. What the F***CK was this? How could a mid-primal core warrior have 7 golden cores? Despite his shock, the black-robed warrior's hands were not idle. He hurriedly summoned his flying sword and slashed out a sword wave of his own. Kaboom! The moment the 2 sword waves collided, the black-robed warrior's eyes revealed a look of shock. He realized that the sword wave he had slashed out had been easily dispersed like a piece of white paper. Following that, the sword wave from the red flying sword in midair rushed straight at him. The ultimate state of solitaire is indeed very powerful. Seeing the black-robed warrior's wretched state, even Ningyu, who knew how powerful the ultimate state of solitaire was, could not help but look surprised. The black-robed warrior was a late-stage yin-yang warrior, but he had not been able to gain an advantage over solitaire. From this, it could be seen that even Ningyu had underestimated the power of the ultimate state of solitaire. If I use the solitary sword wave unexpectedly, I can even fight against the yin-yang realm pinnacle martial artist. Ningyu's mind began to race. He had originally planned to give up on the trip to Snow Pavilion. After all, there were peak yin-yang warriors in Snow Pavilion. However, when he saw how powerful solitaire was, he immediately decided to head to Snow Pavilion as soon as he dealt with the black-robed warrior. Haha, do you think you can defeat me, Black Whirlwind, with just this sword wave? At this moment, the black-robed warrior looked up to the sky and laughed. I, Black Whirlwind, have been able to survive in the capital for so many years. It is not for nothing. Puffed. Before the black-robed warrior could finish his sentence, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. I, Black Whirlwind, can you not? The black-robed warrior looked down at the red, flying sword in his heart. His mouth opened slightly as he pointed at Ningyu. Then, with a thud, his body fell forward. At the instant the black-robed warrior fell, the flying sword in his heart flashed out and returned to Ningyu's hand. The red flying sword was the Red Fiend sword. To be more precise, it was the Red Fiend sword that was controlled by the Red Fiend sword. The Red Fiend sword had recovered to the peak king rank, so it was naturally able to pierce through space in a short period of time and appear before the black-robed warrior to kill him. Because the black-robed warrior's attention had been placed on Solitaire, he had been careless, and the Red Fiend's sword had found an opening. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to kill the black-robed warrior with just the Red Fiend sword. Ha ha, weren't you showing off? Show off again. Ouch. The Dark Emperor roared with laughter when he saw the black-robed warrior being killed. However, he'd only spoken a few words when he aggravated the injuries on his body, and he grimaced in pain. Dark Emperor, hurry up and check if there's anything good on Black Whirlwind. Then leave this place quickly. Ningyu released his perception and probed the surroundings for a while before saying in a deep voice, "A late-stage Yin-Yang Realm warrior has been killed. It will definitely attract the attention of the mysterious force in Snow Domain Pavilion. This is the best time for us to sneak into Snow Domain Pavilion." Understood. Although the Dark Emperor was usually sloppy, he was not careless when it came to critical matters. Hearing Ning Yu's words, the Dark Emperor immediately searched the black-robed warrior's body. After a while, the Dark Emperor came to Ning Yu's side. There were two items in the Dark Emperor's hand. The first was a white token, and the second was a black pearl. Exactly the same. Ningyu frowned slightly when he received the white token and black pearl from the Dark Emperor. These two items were exactly the same as the ones he'd obtained from Fong Ming and Old Tin not long ago. There's almost no difference. The only difference was that there was a plum blossom mark on the upper left corner of the black-robed warrior's white token. Black Whirlwind said that Snow Domain Pavilion has a total of 3 lines of defense. Ningyu waved the white token in his hand and murmured, "It seems like Fong Ming's token can allow us to enter the first 2 lines of defense, and this token is the key to entering the 3rd line of defense. Dark Emperor, same rules." Chapter 514. Boundary. This was not the first time that the Dark Emperor had destroyed a corpse. This time, it was a familiar process, and the black-robed martial artist completely disappeared from the face of the earth. "Let's go." Seeing the black-robed martial artist disappear into thin air, Ningyu relaxed a little. He rose from the ground and headed for the capital city. The Dark Emperor knew that Ningyu was going to the Snow Pavilion, so he immediately turned into a shadow and entered the storage ring. Whoosh! Not long after, Ningyu appeared at the main entrance of the Snow Pavilion. However, Ningyu had already changed his appearance. His entire body was wrapped in a black robe, and he looked somewhat similar to the black-robed martial artist from before. If one did not look closely, one would not be able to tell. Furthermore, Ningyu's entire body exuded a faint yin-yang aura, which made it even more difficult to distinguish him from the real one. "Please show me your token." Although he was well prepared, when Ningyu wanted to step into the Snow Pavilion, he was immediately stopped by a peak primal core martial artist. Without any hesitation, Ningyu flicked his wrist and took out the black-robed martial artist token. The peak primal core martial artist looked at the white token in Ningyu's hand and immediately became respectful. "Lord Black Whirlwind." Ningyu kept the white token and stepped into the Snow Pavilion. After Ningyu left, the peak primal core martial artist frowned and muttered, "Didn't Lord Black Whirlwind just leave the Snow Pavilion? Why is he back so soon?" In fact, it was no wonder that the peak primal core martial artist was confused. Not long ago, the Snow Pavilion had sent out 3 advanced Yin-Yang Realm martial artists. This was the first time they had sent out 3 advanced Yin-Yang Realm martial artists since they had taken over the Snow Pavilion. Furthermore, when the 3 advanced Yin-Yang Realm martial artists left, their expressions were very serious and even a little gloomy. "Forget it. It has nothing to do with me anyway. I'll just guard the door honestly." Shaking his head, the peak of the primal core stage warrior threw all his thoughts to the back of his mind and focused on guarding the door, preventing anyone from sneaking into the Snow Pavilion. Shio. However, just as the peak primal core practitioner extended his senses, his expression changed as he said in a low voice, "Please show me your token." In front of the pinnacle of the primal core stage, a middle-aged man scoffed and threw the white token in his hand over. Seeing the plum blossom mark on the lower left corner of the white token, the peak primal core practitioner's heart skipped a beat, and he respectfully returned the token to the middle-aged man. After receiving the white token, the middle-aged man walked into the Snow Domain Pavilion without looking back. I wonder why Lord Coldfaced has returned at this time. After the middle-aged man disappeared, the martial artist at the peak of the primal core stage wiped the sweat off his forehead. Obviously, the middle-aged man gave him a lot of pressure. Meanwhile, in the Snow Pavilion, although this was not the first time Ningyu had come to Snow Domain Pavilion, he was extra careful this time. He had heard from a warrior in the black robe that there were 3 lines of defense in Snow Domain Pavilion. However, after entering the Snow Domain Pavilion, everything was ordinary and unremarkable, as empty as the wilderness. Not even a strand of hair could be seen, much less 3 lines of defense. This doesn't make sense. Didn't they say there were 3 lines of defense? Standing in the courtyard of the Snow Domain Pavilion, Ningyu frowned and muttered to himself. Suddenly, Ningyu's expression changed, and he quickly turned his head to look. Opposite him, a middle-aged man stopped in his tracks, his expression unusually cold. "Black Whirlwind, don't you even recognize me?" Not only was the middle-aged man's expression cold, even his tone was icy. Seeing that Ningyu's expression was dark and uncertain, the middle-aged man's lips curled into a smile. He said, "Should I call you Black Whirlwind, or should I call you Impersonator?" However, when the middle-aged man laughed, it was also very cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." Ningyu naturally wouldn't admit it, so he said in a deep voice, "Hee, it doesn't matter if you don't admit it." The middle-aged man continued to laugh. "To tell you the truth, just an hour ago, we received news that Black Whirlwind has been killed." At this point, the middle-aged man changed the topic and said, "Because of this, we sent out 3 warriors of the advanced Yin-Yang stage to investigate, and I had to return to Snow Domain Pavilion to deal with something. Who would have thought that I would meet the impersonator of Black Whirlwind here? I will give you a chance now." The middle-aged man raised a finger and said, "Tell me who killed Black Whirlwind, and I will consider sparing your life." In the eyes of the middle-aged man, the warrior in front of him was only in the intermediate primal core stage, and naturally could not have killed Black Whirlwind. This was because the difference in strength between the two was too great, and they were not even on the same level. The middle-aged man guessed that the person who killed Black Whirlwind must be someone else. His cultivation level was at least in the peak of the Yin-Yang stage, or at least in the advanced Yin-Yang stage. Although Black Whirlwind's strength was the weakest among the 4 of them, it was not to be underestimated. An ordinary warrior of the advanced Yin-Yang stage would not have been able to kill Black Whirlwind. Since you've already guessed it, I don't have anything to hide. Ningyu lifted his black robe and revealed his true appearance. Ningyu. Looking at the familiar face in front of him, the middle-aged man raised an eyebrow in surprise. "With your intermediate primal core stage cultivation, you dare to barge into Snow Domain Pavilion? You know me?" Ningyu did not expect the middle-aged man to know him, and was a little surprised. "I don't know you. I have only seen your portrait." The middle-aged man's words made Ningyu want to vomit blood. After all this time, he did not know him. "Since you are Ningyu, then I am sorry to say that even if you tell me who killed Black Whirlwind, you will not be spared today," the middle-aged man said in a low voice. "If I said that I killed Black Whirlwind, would you believe me?" Ningyu stared into the middle-aged man's eyes and said solemnly, "Ha ha." The middle-aged man laughed maniacally and said coldly, "Are you lying to a 3-year-old? Even if you were at the peak of the primal core stage, you would not be able to withstand 1 blow from Black Whirlwind, much less kill him. It is up to you whether you believe me or not." Ningyu shrugged and put his black robe back on, revealing only his eyes. "If you want to kill me today, I am afraid it will not be so easy. I can create a big commotion and let the people outside know." Whoosh! As Ningyu spoke, the middle-aged man waved his hand, and suddenly, the array around the courtyard seemed to be activated. In an instant, the courtyard was enveloped in a white fog. Is that so? When the white fog rose, The middle-aged man's lips curled up into a smile. This barrier is specially prepared to deal with the invasion of foreign warriors. You are lucky to be the first warrior to open the barrier. You are very lucky. If that is the case, I will not be able to escape today. Ningyu took a deep breath, and his expression became unusually serious. The middle-aged man before him was much more powerful than Black Whirlwind. Chapter 5:15. Lung Mian. Ningyu, are you going to commit suicide, or should I take the initiative? The middle-aged man did not care about Ningyu's solemn expression and said directly, if you commit suicide, you can reduce a lot of pain. However, if I take the initiative, the situation may be a little more serious. I have a hobby. I don't kill people at once. Instead, I will slowly torture them to death. By the way, this day next year will be your death anniversary anyway. I will let you die knowing why. Suddenly, the middle-aged man seemed to have thought of something and said, remember, my name is Lung Mian. Lung Mian, what kind of noodles is that? Can it be eaten? Ningyu frowned slightly and said indifferently, unfortunately, whether it's cold or hot noodles, they are not my cup of tea. You're courting death. Lung Mian's expression instantly darkened. His originally cold face became even colder at this moment. After a low shout, Lung Mian rose from the ground and appeared in front of Ningyu in the blink of an eye. Then, Lung Mian's right hand brought along a violent primordial energy wind and blasted it towards Ningyu's chest. In order to kill Ningyu in one move, Lung Mian used 50% of his strength in this punch. In Lung Mian's opinion, he had already given Ningyu enough face by using 50% of his strength in this punch. In his words, even if Ningyu died in battle, it would be enough for him to be proud. You want to kill me with a punch of 50% strength? It's not that easy. Ningyu's soul power had reached the peak of the 5th grade. Naturally, he could tell that Lung Mian did not use his full strength and only used 50% of his strength. Lung Mian's punch of 50% strength was similar to Black Whirlwind's punch of 80% strength. You could even kill Black Whirlwind at his peak, let alone a punch that was equivalent to 80% of his strength. Bang! Ningyu clenched his right fist, and the primordial energy in his sea of consciousness surged out and wrapped around his fist. In the next moment, Ningyu threw a punch and collided with Lung Mian's fist. Ningyu, in your next life. F***CK. Before the two fists collided, Lung Mian still wanted to say something sinister. However, he forcefully swallowed his words. In fact, he even cursed out loud. That was because Lung Mian realized that his punch with 50% of his strength did not manage to repel Ningyu. On the contrary, Ningyu seemed to have the upper hand. What the hell is going on? Lung Mian could not believe what he was seeing. How could a warrior in the intermediate Yuan Dan realm be so powerful? Now, it's your turn to receive my palm strike. Just as Lung Mian was slightly stunned, Ningyu's right fist turned into a palm and slapped Lung Mian's cheek. The power of Ningyu's palm was extremely powerful. At the very least, it was much more powerful than Lung Mian's punch with 50% of his strength. Humph! That punch just now was only 50% of my strength. Do you really think that's all I'm capable of? Lung Mian was indeed a warrior at the peak of the advanced yin-yang realm. He instantly recovered from his daze. After regaining his senses, Lung Mian channeled all his yuan qi into his palm and pushed it out. Lung Mian was at a disadvantage in the first move. He would not allow that situation to happen again. Therefore, Lung Mian used 100% of his strength in order to kill in one blow. Dark Emperor. Ningyu bellowed just as his palm was about to touch Lung Mian's palm. Humph! Try to divert my attention? How is that not good? Lung Mian snorted. He thought that Ningyu wanted to divert his attention and then wait for an opportunity to strike. Who would have thought that before Lung Mian finished speaking, his expression changed drastically? Swoosh! A black figure rushed out of the storage ring in Ningyu's hand and appeared in front of Lung Mian. Black Dog? Although Lung Mian tried his best not to divert his attention, when he saw that the figure in front of him was a dog, he could not help but be momentarily stunned. Smack! However, during Lung Mion's momentary daze, the Dark Emperor seized the opportunity and swept his tail fiercely toward his cheek. Without a doubt, the Dark Emperor's tail whipped Lung Mion's cheek, leaving a bloody mark. Damn dog, you've completely angered me. Lung Mion covered his burning cheek and said fiercely to the Dark Emperor, I'm going to peel off your skin and whip you. Boom! Before Lung Mion could finish his sentence, he felt his body lighten and was sent flying. His body hit the barrier, and Lung Mion fell flat on his face. Lung Mion struggled to stand up from the ground, feeling a little lucky. Fortunately, there was a barrier around him. Otherwise, wouldn't it be embarrassing if the others in Snow Domain Pavilion saw his miserable state? However, even though he was lucky, Lung Mion's face turned completely cold. First, he was schemed against by Ningyu, and now he was schemed against by a dog. An aunt could tolerate it, but an uncle couldn't. Ningyu, you're finished. No one in the world can save you, Lung Mion bellowed in a deep voice. Haha, no one in the world can save him. Can your grandfather? At the side, the Dark Emperor laughed. A peak late-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist is only SOSO. Dark Emperor, don't underestimate anyone. Ningyu's words rang in the Dark Emperor's ears. After 2 consecutive sneak attacks, the Dark Emperor gradually became arrogant. The first sneak attack on Black Whirlwind, and in the end, he cooperated with Ningyu to kill him. The second sneak attack on Lung Mion, who was at the peak late-stage Yin-Yang realm, almost severely injured him. Originally, the Dark Emperor could only fight against a mid-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist. These 2 successes had indeed made him a little arrogant. At this moment, Ningyu felt that he had to knock him down a peg to prevent him from continuing to become arrogant. How can I underestimate others? The Dark Emperor chuckled and pointed at Lung Mion. This person has a cold face, and he looks like someone owes him crystals. I don't like it, so I'm just teasing him. Be careful. Today is destined to be a fierce battle. Ningyu took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Although Lung Mion had suffered quite a bit of injuries, his strength did not decrease by much. The first 2 moves were just a test. What followed was the real battle. Crack. It's been a long time since I've eaten dog meat. Today I want to eat dog meat and drink dog soup. Lung Mion twisted his neck and made a cracking sound. You want to eat your grandfather? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. The Dark Emperor said disdainfully. Ningyu, I'll go test him first. As she spoke, the Dark Emperor stomped on the ground and leaped up, wanting to fight Lung Mion head-on. Wait. However, before the Dark Emperor could move, Ningyu shook his head and smiled. You don't need to do anything to deal with Lung Mion. Hearing that, the Dark Emperor was slightly stunned. Then, as if he had thought of something, his eyes widened and his face was filled with excitement. Ningyu nodded at the Dark Emperor imperceptibly. He then flung the storage ring in his hand above his head and said calmly, Come out. I'll leave Lung Mion to you guys. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Chapter 516. Control just now. Ningyu received a message from Sun Jiangwen, saying that they had healed Li Tong Tian and that the Alchemy Hall Master's cultivation had recovered to its peak. Since that was the case, Ningyu naturally did not hesitate to summon them to fight against Lung Mion. Ningyu was only at the intermediate primal core stage and did not have much confidence in winning against Lung Mion. If the Alchemy Hall Master, who was at the peak of the advanced Yin-Yang realm, Ningyu was confident that he could kill Lung Mion. Peak of the advanced Yin-Yang realm, Lung Mion stared at the Alchemy Hall Master with a serious expression. Wang Haibao and Sun Jiangwen were naturally ignored by Lung Mion. After all, Wang Haibao was only at the intermediate Yin-Yang realm, and his right hand had been severely injured, while Sun Jiangwen was only at the peak of the primal core stage. It was understandable that the 2 of them were ignored by Lung Mion. With their help, Lung Mion will probably become a hot face. The Dark Emperor laughed and said, I'm still a little excited at the thought of killing a peak of the advanced Yin-Yang realm later. Bang! Ningyu kicked the Dark Emperor's butt and said angrily, What are you excited for? Hurry up and think of a way to break this boundary. We don't have much time left. Since Lung Mian knew that Black Whirlwind was killed by him, the other two advanced Yin-Yang Realm warriors would know sooner or later. Ningyu had to hurry up and break through the 3 lines of defense of Snow Pavilion before they returned and rescue Lu Wei's parents. Once they returned, the consequences would be dire. After all, there were peak Yin-Yang Realm warriors in the 3rd line of defense of Snow Pavilion. Kaboom! At this moment, on the other side, the Alchemy Hall Master and Lung Mian had already started fighting. Wang Haibao was helping from the side, waiting for an opportunity to strike. As for Sun Jiangwen, he came to Ningyu's side and asked curiously, "Ningyu, why did you call me out?" Sun Jiangwen was very puzzled. With his peak Yuan core stage cultivation, he probably could not even take one blow from Lung Mian. However, Sun Jiangwen knew that for Ningyu to call him out at this time, it was definitely not a joke. There must be some instructions. Upon hearing Sun Jiangwen's words, Ningyu said in a deep voice, "How confident are you that you can control Lung Mian later? I mean, that kind of absolute control. He will do whatever you want him to do. Moreover, a martial artist at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm will not be able to discover it." Impossible. The moment Ningyu finished speaking, Sun Jiangwen shook his head and said, "To be honest, I have an 80% chance of controlling my cold face. However, it's very difficult to hide from the perception of a peak Yin-Yang realm martial artist. At the very least, I can't do it with my current soul power. It doesn't make sense. Your soul strength is at the peak of level 7. It should be easy for you to hide from the perception of a warrior at the peak of Yin-Yang realm." Ningyu frowned and felt that it was unbelievable. In his previous life, when his soul strength was only at the middle of level 6, he could hide from the perception of a warrior at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm. There was no reason that Sun Jiangwen's soul strength at the peak of level 7 could not do this. It's not that simple. Unless my control of my soul strength reaches the extreme, I can't guarantee that I can hide from a warrior at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm. Sun Jiangwen shook his head and said, "With the strength of my soul strength, I can at most hide from a warrior at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm. What's the use of that?" Ningyu's expression was a little cold. He waved his hand and gestured for Sun Jiangwen to wait here. In the next moment, Ningyu rose from the ground, waved the red demon sword in his hand quickly, and directly joined the battle. "Solitaire," Ningyu shouted in a low voice. In an instant, a sword wave separated from the red demon's sword and slashed at Lung Mian. Oh no! Lung Mian was already at a disadvantage, facing the Alchemist Temple Master and Wang Haibao alone. Now that Ningyu joined the battle again, he immediately felt the pressure increase. Chi! At the critical moment, Lung Mian forced the Alchemist Temple Master to retreat. As he waved his sleeve, a cold light swept out and collided with the sword wave. After one move, Lung Mian shouted, "Ningyu, I admit that I underestimated you, but if you want to kill me, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. This is the Snow Pavilion, our base camp. To tell you the truth, there's a warrior at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm in the depths of the Snow Pavilion. You still have a chance to escape. When the warrior at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm comes out from the depths of the Snow Pavilion, you won't even have the chance to escape." Lung Mian rolled his eyes and said a few words in succession in order to divert Ningyu's attention. "Good chance." Sure enough, seeing that Ningyu was slightly stunned, Lung Mian instantly tore the void and appeared beside Ningyu in an instant. Immediately after, a faint purple light appeared on Lung Mian's fist, and before Ningyu could react, his fist had already landed on his chest. Bam! Lung Mian's speed was extremely fast, and he did not even hesitate to burn his primordial chi to increase his speed. Therefore, Ningyu could not dodge Lung Mian's powerful attack. A crisp sound was heard, and then Ningyu's body fell straight to the back like a kite with a broken string. Puffed. A mouthful of red blood was spat out, and Ningyu's face turned a little pale. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the primordial chi in Ningyu's sea of consciousness poured out, forming a primordial chi shield on the surface of his skin. Otherwise, Lung Mion's move alone was enough to seriously injure him. Even so, Ningyu's strength had dropped by 30%. As Lung Mion had focused all his attention on Ningyu, it caused him to be attacked from the front and back. He was punched in the back by the Alchemist Hall Master and fell straight to the ground. Immediately, the Alchemist Hall Master exerted his powerful perception and pressed on Lung Mion. There were gains and losses. Lung Mion had seriously injured Ningyu. That was a gain. He had been seriously injured by the Alchemist Hall Master. That was a loss. Relatively speaking, Lung Mion had lost this gamble. After all, Ningyu's strength had only dropped by 30%, but he was completely controlled by the Alchemist Hall Master. Sun Jingwen, find a way to control him. I'll give you an hour. After an hour, I want to know how to open the 3 lines of defense of Snow Domain Pavilion. Ningyu said to Sun Jingwen in a deep voice, and his tone was unquestionable. Sun Jingwen's heart skipped a beat when he heard that, and he hurriedly nodded and said, I need the help of the Alchemist Hall Master and Wang Haiba. No problem, but you have to remember that you only have an hour. Ningyu shouted in a low voice, you can use the supreme grade primordial crystals in the storage ring. I don't care about the process. I only care about the results. Understood. Sun Jingwen knew that the task this time was very difficult, so he did not dare to be negligent. After responding, he immediately grabbed the seriously injured Lung Mion and swept him into the storage ring. Behind him, the Alchemist Hall Master and Wang Haiba also sped up and followed. Ningyu, I found a way to break the barrier. Chapter 517. The second formation, no problem. Ningyu agreed to the Dark Emperor's request without hesitation. The time he gave Sun Jingwen was an hour. Now that the Dark Emperor needed an hour, he naturally wouldn't refuse. Did you take the wrong medicine? The Dark Emperor didn't expect Ningyu to agree so readily and was stunned for a moment. That's not right. He doesn't play by the rules at all. Initially, the Dark Emperor thought that Ningyu would definitely bargain with him. Who would have thought that Ningyu would agree so readily? This made him a little stunned. Ningyu didn't know what the Dark Emperor was thinking. At this moment, he sat cross-legged on the ground and circulated the spirit transformation art to replenish his energy. In order to block Lung Mion's powerful punch, Ningyu had consumed a lot of energy in his sea of consciousness. He could use this hour to recuperate and strive to recover to his peak state. After all, the existence in the depths of the Snow Domain Pavilion was at the peak of the yin-yang realm. Ningyu didn't even have the slightest confidence in winning against a martial artist at the peak of the yin-yang realm at his peak, let alone when he was injured. Therefore, before meeting a martial artist at the peak of the yin-yang realm, Ningyu had to recover to his peak state. Crack! Ningyu took out a supreme grade essence crystal from his storage ring and began to circulate the spirit transformation art to absorb it. Not long after, a cracking sound rang out. The supreme grade essence crystal in Ningyu's hand shattered. The energy in Ningyu's sea of consciousness had also increased significantly. It's time to cultivate the spirit transformation art. Ningyu had only cultivated the spirit transformation art to the 4th level. When he was at the true martial realm, the absorption speed of the 4th level of the spirit transformation art wasn't slow. However, when he reached the middle stage of the Yuan Dan realm, Ningyu felt that the absorption speed of the spirit transformation art couldn't keep up with his consumption. It was urgent to raise the spirit transformation art to the 5th level. However, there was only half an hour left. Ningyu would definitely not waste his time on cultivating the spirit transformation technique. At the very least, it was not easy for Ningyu to recover to his peak state within an hour. While Ningyu was recovering in the depths of Snow Domain Pavilion in a secret room. Did you find out who killed Black Whirlwind? A gray-robed old man frowned slightly and asked in a deep voice. A middle-aged man beside the gray-clothed old man hurriedly said, Elder He, I've already sent Lung Mion and the others out to investigate. I believe it won't be long before news comes back. Yes, this matter concerns our reputation. We must investigate it thoroughly. The gray-clothed old man nodded and said. Then, The gray-robed elder continued. You don't have to worry about Black Whirlwind being killed. What you need to do is to ensure that Lu Wei is captured tomorrow and sent to the Imperial Palace in one piece. Elder He, I don't understand why His Majesty wants to see Lu Wei. She's just a Xiantian stage martial artist. The middle-aged man was puzzled when he heard the gray-robed elder's words. Moreover, Lu Wei's father is just an ordinary Yin-Yang stage martial artist. Her mother is even severely injured. If you hadn't sealed her meridians, her mother would have already met Hades. Ask what you should and don't ask what you shouldn't. The gray-robed elder's face turned cold as he scolded. Your task is to send Lu Wei to the Imperial Palace. Don't ask or think about anything else. Even I have to keep this matter to myself, let alone you. There's nothing else for you to do here. You can leave now. The middle-aged man did not dare to stay any longer and immediately left the secret room. Creak. After the middle-aged man left, the gray-robed elder, who was also Elder He, placed his hands on the wall of the secret room. With a creaking sound, a stone door slowly opened. After a moment of silence, Elder He stepped in. On the other side of the stone door was another secret room. This secret room was slightly smaller than the one outside, but there was a stone bed in the middle. A man with gray temples sat beside the stone bed. Pavilion Master Lu, what do you think? Is it time for you to hand over that thing? After entering the secret room, Elder He said to the man beside the bed, His Majesty has been extremely benevolent to you. Not only did he save Snow Domain Pavilion, but he also slowed down your wife's injury. In short, hand over that thing, and I'll give you a good fortune pill. I'll stand by what I said. Hand over the good fortune pill first, and then let me out to see Jean or alone. Otherwise, I'll never hand that thing over to you. Pavilion Master Lu's tone was calm, and it was hard to tell whether he was happy or sad. Why do you have to do this? Elder He sighed softly. To tell you the truth, there's no need for you to persist any longer. His Majesty has already found out about Lu Wei's true identity. What? Pavilion Master Lu almost jumped up when he heard Elder He's words. The veins on his forehead were bulging, and it was extremely frightening. If you dare to touch a single hair on Jean Er's head, I can guarantee that thing will never appear in your hands. Pavilion Master Lu forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a deep voice, He, as a citizen of the Xia Kingdom, how can you not hand over such a precious treasure to the royal family? Elder He smiled before he changed the topic and said coldly, Just that alone is enough for me to execute you on the spot. Don't waste your breath. Unless you hand over the good fortune pill and let me see Jean alone, don't even think about getting that treasure from me. Pavilion Master Lu turned to look at the woman on the bed and ignored Elder He. Elder He's face darkened when he was ignored by Pavilion Master Lu, but he didn't do anything out of line. Instead, he left the secret room. At the same time, in the courtyard of Snow Domain Pavilion, Ningyu suddenly opened his eyes and slowly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. After an hour of rest, he had finally recovered to his peak condition, and his strength had even improved. Crack! Not long after Ningyu opened his eyes, good news came from the Dark Emperor. The enchantment was slapped open by the Dark Emperor. Right at this moment, Sun Jianwen's voice sounded in Ningyu's mind. I've completely controlled Lung Mian. He'll do whatever you want him to do now. Hearing Sun Jianwen's words, Ningyu revealed a look of joy. However, when Ningyu heard the second half of Sun Jianwen's words, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. I've used up all the remaining supreme-grade essence crystals in the storage ring. There were at least 5 million supreme-grade essence crystals left in the storage ring, and Sun Jianwen actually used them all. Even if he smashed so many supreme-grade essence crystals one by one, it would still take a long time. Ningyu, I've used the remaining supreme-grade essence crystals to set up a small array formation. As long as the cultivation of martial artists is below Yin-Yang realm, I can use this array formation to make them submit to you with 100% certainty. Sun Jianwen hurriedly said when he saw that Ningyu was a little angry. If that's the case, it's worth it. Originally, Ningyu wanted to slap Sun Jianwen, but after hearing the latter sentence, he directly dispelled this idea. Let alone spending 5 million supreme-grade essence crystals. Even if he spent 10 million supreme-grade essence crystals, Ningyu would unconditionally support Sun Jiangwen. Because with this array formation, he could keep the corpse insect martial artist he captured in the future in the storage ring. He would first use the first array formation to get rid of the smell on his body, and then use the second array formation to make him submit to him. Chapter 518. Poison Scorpion Sun Jiangwen. Did you find out what's going on with the 3 lines of defense? For Ningyu, no matter how good the formation was, it wouldn't be of much help. The most important thing now was to find the 3 lines of defense and Lu Wei's parents. Only by rescuing Lu Wei's parents from the snow domain could he ensure that Lu Wei wouldn't come to the snow domain pavilion tomorrow night and walk right into the trap. Yes, all 3 lines of defense are in the forbidden area of the snow domain pavilion. Sun Jiangwen explained, the first line of defense is at the entrance of the forbidden area. It's guarded by early Yin-Yang realm warriors. No one is allowed to enter without an access token. The second line of defense is in the depths of the forbidden area. It's guarded by 4 middle Yin-Yang realm warriors. Sun Jiangwen paused and then continued. This line of defense can't be entered just by having an access token. One must have a plum blossom mark on the token. Plum blossom mark? Ningyu raised his eyebrows and asked in confusion. He had a total of 2 white tokens on him. One was from Fong Ming, and the other was from Black Whirlwind. The white token from Fong Ming didn't have a plum blossom mark, but the one from Hey Whirlwind had a plum blossom mark on the top left corner. Hey Whirlwind, Lung Mian, Qing Wu, and the Pale-Face Scholar. Sun Jiangwen nodded and said, all 4 of them are late Yin-Yang realm warriors. They're also the only 4 warriors with plum blossom marks on their tokens. What's the strength of Qing Wu and the Pale-Face Scholar? Ningyu asked. They're both above Lung Mian. Sun Jiangwen said in a deep voice, the 2 of them aren't important because they're not in the capital right now. They've gone to investigate Hey Whirlwind's death. There are 2 other strong warriors in the forbidden area of the Snow Domain Pavilion that we must pay attention to. Poison Scorpion, peak Yin-Yang realm. He's stronger than the Pale-Face Scholar. He's the 2nd strongest warrior in the Snow Domain Pavilion. Old Crane, peak Yin-Yang realm. He's strong and currently controls this mysterious force. Hiss. Hearing this, Ningyu could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Originally, he thought that after dealing with Hey Whirlwind and Lung Mian, there would only be 1 peak Yin-Yang realm martial artist left in Snow Domain Pavilion. Who would have thought that there would be another powerful peak Yin-Yang realm martial artist? With all of Ningyu's forces, he could think of a way to stall Old Crane and buy him time to unleash his ultimate solitaire. But if there was another peak Yin-Yang realm late-stage martial artist, the situation would become very dangerous. Ningyu, are you going or not? The Dark Emperor's expression was slightly solemn, and his usually arrogant personality was slightly restrained. Go. Since we're already here, there's absolutely no reason for us to shrink back. Ningyu gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Sun Jiangwen, there's still an evil eye at the peak of Yin-Yang intermediate stage in the storage ring. Use the array formation to control him. I'll need him later. That's naturally not a problem. By the way, I need 2 drops of your blood essence. Sun Jiangwen seemed to have thought of something as he spoke. If you want to control Lung Mian and Evil Eye, you have to use 2 drops of blood essence. Swoosh. Swoosh. Ningyu did not waste any time and directly forced 2 drops of blood essence into the storage ring. Buzz. As soon as the blood essence entered the storage ring, Ningyu felt that he had established a subtle connection with Lung Mian. In other words, he now controlled Lung Mian's life and death. With just a thought, Lung Mian would turn into ashes. I didn't expect Sun Jiangwen to know so many things. He even has such a special array formation. Ningyu was quite satisfied with Sun Jiangwen. In the past, Ningyu had also controlled many martial artists, but he had always used his soul power to control them, which more or less affected the advancement of his soul power. But it was different now. There seemed to be a trace of connection that could not be grasped or grasped. If I have time, I should study this array formation properly. Ningyu secretly made up his mind. If he could successfully leave Snow Domain Pavilion this time, he would personally enter the storage ring to study the array formation. If he could find the trick to the array formation, it would be very easy to control others in the future. He did not need to worry about his soul power being affected at all. Dark Emperor, just like before, enter the storage ring and be on standby. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu said to the Dark Emperor beside him. Swoosh! The Dark Emperor turned into an afterimage and entered the storage ring. Swoosh! As soon as the Dark Emperor entered the storage ring, Lung Mian flew out and landed beside Ningyu. Bring me to the first line of defense. Without any hesitation, Lung Mian took the lead and walked towards the depths of Snow Domain Pavilion. Ningyu took a deep breath and followed closely. Although Ningyu had been to Snow Domain Pavilion once, he had only been to the outer courtyard of Snow Domain Pavilion, not to mention the forbidden area. Lung Mian seemed to be familiar with the place and led Ningyu around Snow Domain Pavilion. Once you see it, you will never know it. From the outside, Snow Domain Pavilion looked inconspicuous, but the framework inside was extremely large, to a frightening extent. Actually, it was no wonder. Snow Domain Pavilion was the largest herb store in the Xia Kingdom after all. It had business all over the Xia Kingdom, and even had business with the neighboring Lanqing Kingdom. The capital's headquarters was the facade. If the facade was not big enough, it would be easy to be looked down upon. We're here. Not long after, Lung Mian stopped in front of a dilapidated house. Ningyu pointed at the house in front of him and asked doubtfully, is this the forbidden area of Snow Domain Pavilion? Yes, this is indeed the forbidden area of Snow Domain Pavilion. Lung Mian nodded and did not waste any more time. All right, I choose to believe you. Ningyu shrugged helplessly and put on the black robe. His aura became exactly the same as Black Tornado. Go ahead and lead the way. Although Ningyu chose to believe him, he was not a fool. He did not enter the house first and let Lung Mian lead the way. Creak. The house was indeed a little dilapidated. When Lung Mian opened the door, there was even a creaking sound. Ningyu muttered in his heart. Could Lung Mian be lying to him? Please show me your token. However, just as Ningyu was feeling doubtful, a powerful voice came from inside the house. Hearing this voice, Ningyu was stunned at first, but then he revealed a joyful expression. Indeed, according to Sun Jiangwen, this was the entrance to the first line of defense. The moment the door opened, Ningyu found 4 martial artists inside, and their cultivation was at the early stage of Yin-Yang realm. Swish! Lung Mian flicked his wrist and threw his token over. Swish! Ningyu naturally would not drop the ball at this time. He took out Black Tornado's token and threw it into the room. Lord Lung Mian, Lord Black Tornado. In the next moment, the token was thrown out of the room, and a respectful voice was heard. Lord Scorpion sent a message just now. He said to see Lord Lung Mian as soon as you return. Did he say what it is? Lung Mian asked according to Ningyu's instructions. Chapter 519. Chapter 519. Evil Cloud Pavilion. Is it related to Black Whirlwind? Ningyu's expression turned grave when he heard the voice coming from the room. Did Scorpion discover that Black Whirlwind had been killed? If that was the case, the situation would be very tricky. Scorpion was at the peak of the late-stage Yin-Yang realm, and he was much stronger than Lung Mian. Even if he did not know that Black Whirlwind had been killed, he would inevitably give himself away if he went to see him now. Where is Scorpion now? Lung Mian asked calmly. Lord Scorpion is at the Evil Cloud Pavilion. Got it. Lung Mian nodded and entered the dilapidated house. Ningyu naturally did not hesitate and followed closely behind Lung Mian. After entering the room, Ningyu discovered that 2 early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artists were guarding the door, while the other 2 early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artists were guarding a narrow passage. Without a doubt, the narrow passage in front of him had been listed as a forbidden area of Snow Domain Pavilion. To be precise, it was the entrance to the forbidden area. Lung Mian did not stop at the entrance of the passage. Instead, he took out 2 supreme-grade origin crystals and threw them into the holes on both sides of the passage. Then, he leaped into the passage. Since Lung Mian had entered the passage, there was no reason for Ningyu to stay. He also took out 2 supreme-grade origin crystals and threw them into the holes before following closely behind. Lord Black Whirlwind seems a little off today. After Ningyu and the rest entered the passage, a slightly plump martial artist among the 4 early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artists frowned and said, he used to be on bad terms with Lord Lung Mian. Did the sun rise from the west today? Lord Black Whirlwind used to be a chatterbox, but he didn't say a word today, another early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist said doubtfully. Hearing that, the remaining 3 early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artists, including the slightly plump martial artist, felt a chill in their hearts and had a strange expression on their faces. Indeed, Black Whirlwind usually talked a lot when he passed through here. He was a real chatterbox. Today, he was with Lung Mian, but he didn't say a word at all. Where is the evil cloud pavilion? In a narrow passageway, Ningyu naturally did not care about the surprise of the 4 early-stage Yin-Yang realm warriors. At that moment, he carefully followed behind Lung Mian and asked, should we pass through the second line of defense? Ningyu could only use one word to describe the forbidden area of Shuiyu Pavilion: blind. In this world, he was an idiot. He could only ask the cold side about everything. Fortunately, Lung Mian had been completely controlled. Otherwise, if anything happened, Ningyu would not even have tears to cry. The evil cloud pavilion is between the first and second line of defense. There's no need to pass through the second line of defense. Lung Yin answered mechanically. Tell me about the evil cloud pavilion, including the equipment around it, Ningyu asked again. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will be prepared for 100 battles. Scorpion was a martial artist at the peak of the late-stage Yin-Yang realm. Before meeting him, Ningyu felt the need to understand the so-called evil cloud pavilion. The evil cloud pavilion is a special place. There's a large array around it that isolates it from the outside world. Lung Mian did not dare to be negligent. He explained, moreover, the evil cloud pavilion is an independent office. There's a small transportation array inside that allows us to directly teleport to the depths of Shuiyu Pavilion's forbidden area without passing through the second and third lines of defense. In other words, it's the secret room where old he is. Ningyu raised his eyebrows. He was slightly surprised. It was tempting for Ningyu to directly teleport to the depths of Shuiyu Pavilion's forbidden area without passing through the second and third lines of defense. Ningyu had only learned from Sun Jiangwen that the first line of defense was guarded by 4 early-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artists, while the second line of defense was guarded by 4 mid-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artists. One could imagine that the guards of the third line of defense were not weak. Although Ningyu had the token with him, he did not dare to say that he could pass through the third line of defense for sure. The consequences would be dire if he was discovered. I just want to know if fighting in the evil cloud pavilion will attract attention, Ningyu said in a deep voice. That won't happen. The array outside the evil cloud pavilion is very special. Even a martial artist at the peak of Yin-Yang realm won't be able to break it unless they open it from the inside, Lung Mian said. This isn't even the depths of Shuiyu Pavilion's forbidden area. I can't believe there's such a powerful array here. Ningyu's expression was a little ugly. He felt that he had underestimated Shuiyu Pavilion and the mysterious force in the pavilion. In the entire forbidden area of Shuiyu Pavilion, only the evil cloud pavilion is special. There's no such heaven-defying array in the depths of the forbidden area. Lung Mian continued. Rumor has it that a mysterious person came to Shuiyu Pavilion more than a decade ago and stayed in the evil cloud pavilion for a while. He might have personally set up the array outside the evil cloud pavilion. Ningyu sucked in a cold breath. He was able to set up such a powerful array after staying here for a while. That mysterious person must be very powerful. After a moment of silence, Ningyu said, Let's go. Bring me to the evil cloud pavilion. We'll meet the so-called Scorpion. He would meet the scorpion sooner or later anyway. It was better to meet him now than later. If he could kill the scorpion first, it would be a great help to save Lu Wei's parents. Swoosh, swoosh. At first, the passage was narrow. However, as Ningyu and the others went deeper, it gradually widened. Many forks appeared in the narrow passage. Lung Mian hesitated for a moment before choosing the leftmost fork and dashing in. Ningyu's figure flashed as he followed closely behind Lung Mian. The fork was narrow at first, but it gradually widened. In the end, it could even accommodate a few people at the same time. The primal chi is getting denser. After advancing for a while, Ningyu felt that the primal chi around him was getting denser. The density of the primal chi would increase with every distance they advanced. 1 time, 3 times, 5 times. When the primal chi density reached 5 times that of the outside world, Lung Mian stopped. When he saw that Lung Mian stopped, Ningyu stopped as well. However, at that moment, Ningyu looked at the white fog before him and murmured, "This is the evil cloud pavilion?" That's right. There's a luxurious palace behind the white fog. Lung Mian nodded and said loudly, "Lord Scorpion, Lung Mian is here to visit. Please open the restriction." Swoosh. The moment Lung Mian spoke, the initially dense white fog parted to the sides, leaving a passage in the middle. When he saw the passage, Lung Mian took a step forward and entered. As for Ningyu, he had a slightly grim expression as he walked forward quickly, maintaining a distance of 1 step from Lung Mian. This distance was very subtle. He could attack or retreat. If there was any danger, he could use Lung Mian as a shield. After all, Scorpion was a martial artist at the peak of late-stage yin-yang realm. Ningyu had to maintain 120% of his focus and be extremely careful. If he was careless, not only would he not be able to rescue Lu Wei's parents, but he would also be doomed. Swoosh. Chapter 520. Thunder explosion, pearl the white mist on both sides of the tunnel disappeared and was replaced by a bottomless abyss. In other words, Lung Mian and Ningyu were in a bottomless abyss on both sides of the tunnel. It was extremely terrifying. Ningyu took a deep breath and concentrated. If there was even the slightest sign of trouble, he would be the first to react. After all, this was the evil cloud pavilion, Scorpion's territory. It was always better to be careful. Swoosh. Lung Mian was not that worried. After all, he had been here more than once and was more familiar with this place. After walking for about 10 minutes, the bottomless abyss on both sides of the tunnel gradually disappeared, and it was enveloped by the white mist again. After walking for a while, Ningyu could not help but look at the white mist on his left. 1 second. Ningyu's gaze only lingered on the white mist for a second before he looked away. After that, Ningyu did not say anything and continued walking behind Lung Mian. Did he notice me? In the white mist, a middle-aged man raised his brows in slight surprise. Judging from Ningyu's reaction, it seemed like he had noticed him. Perhaps he was a blind cat that ran into a dead mouse. He looked over here a few more times on purpose. The middle-aged man frowned slightly and mumbled, "Black Whirlwind's life plate is already broken. How dare he impersonate Black Whirlwind and enter the evil cloud pavilion at this time? Forget it. Since Lung Mian brought him here personally, I won't do anything for now. I'll listen to what Lung Mian has to say first." Buzz. The middle-aged man tore space apart and disappeared as soon as he finished speaking. On the other hand, Ningyu had already stopped with Lung Mian. Looking at the palace before him, Ningyu opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he did not say anything. On the contrary, Lung Mian said in a deep voice, "Lord Scorpion, may I know why you call me here?" Creak. The palace door opened slowly, and an extremely soft voice rang in Lung Mian's ears. "Lung Mian, what's going on with Black Whirlwind? I need you to give me an explanation." Scorpion didn't know that Ningyu had heard everything he said to cold face. Moreover, Ningyu was still controlling Lung Mian behind the scenes. In other words, what Lung Mian said was what Ningyu wanted to say. "Lord Scorpion, Black Whirlwind has died in battle. We have investigated the cause of his death. Lung Yin replied emotionlessly. Tell me about it, Scorpion asked again. Black Whirlwind was killed by Wan Jingtian. Lung Mian followed Ning Yu's instructions and said, as soon as Black Whirlwind left the capital, he encountered Wan Jingtian. At that time, Wan Jingtian and Fong Ming joined forces to set up an array formation and killed Black Whirlwind. What? Hearing this, Scorpion clenched his fists tightly, the veins on his forehead bulging, and said angrily, Wan Jingtian, that bastard is so daring. Is he tired of living? Lord Scorpion, this person beside me works under Wan Jingtian and participated in the encirclement of Black Whirlwind. Lung Mian pointed at Ning Yu and said, this time, he came to testify against Wan Jingtian. Oh. Scorpion raised an eyebrow and pointed the spearhead at Ning Yu. Tell me who you are and don't hide anything. Otherwise, I will take your life. Lord Scorpion, I am just a small fry working for Wan Jingtian. I am at the mid-primal core stage. Ning Yu was not intimidated by Scorpion's vicious words. On the contrary, he took a step forward and said, there was more than one warrior who attacked Black Whirlwind. Other than Wan Jingtian, there was also Fong Ming of the mid-Yin-Yang stage and Elder Tan of the mid-Yin-Yang stage. Scorpion did not speak for a long time. Then, Scorpion said, come in and talk. I want to know the details. Ning Yu didn't dare to be negligent. He moved his feet and entered the palace. Lung Mian, wait outside for now. I will call you if there is anything. However, just as Lung Mian was about to enter the palace, Scorpion's words rang out. Hearing Scorpion's words, Ning Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he even had the urge to attack. Could it be that Scorpion had discovered that Lung Mian was under his control? However, Ning Yu thought that Scorpion probably had not discovered it. Otherwise, Scorpion would have attacked the moment he saw him. Why would he wait until now? Lord Scorpion, it was Lord Lung Mian who rescued me from Wan Jingtian. He also knows some information. Ning Yu's eyes darted around as he thought of a countermeasure. In that case, Lung Mian can come in as well. Scorpion did not think much and immediately agreed to Ning Yu's request. To Scorpion, neither Lung Mian nor the mid-primal core warrior in front of him were a match for him. Sometimes, as long as one was powerful, there were many things one did not need to worry about. After entering the palace, Scorpion did not question Ning Yu, but instead extended his senses and probed Ning Yu's body. Scorpion was at the peak of the late Yin-Yang stage and was much stronger than Lung Mian. Naturally, Ning Yu did not dare to face Scorpion's probing directly. Instead, he carefully hid the golden core in his consciousness to prevent Scorpion from discovering anything. After a while, Scorpion withdrew his senses and said in a low voice, tell me how Wan Jingtian surrounded Black Whirlwind and how he was killed. If I find out that you're lying, you should be able to imagine the consequences. Lord Scorpion, I dare not. Feeling Scorpion withdraw his senses, Ning Yu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Hearing Scorpion's question, Ning Yu reached deep into his clothes and took out a black bead. The black bead was about the size of half a fist and contained a strong fluctuation of yuan qi. It was the black bead that he had obtained from Old Tan. Lightning explosion bead. The moment he saw the black bead, Scorpion's eyes flashed with fear, but he quickly concealed it. Lightning explosion bead? What is that? Ning Yu looked a little puzzled. He brought the black bead closer to his eyes and carefully observed it. You don't want to live. However, just as Ning Yu put the black bead in front of his eyes, Scorpion shouted, the lightning explosion bead is extremely powerful. Although it is only a low-grade lightning explosion bead, if it is detonated, its power is equivalent to the self-detonation of a martial artist at the early yin-yang stage. Hiss! Ning Yu took a deep breath and immediately held the lightning explosion bead with both hands. Lord Scorpion, I stole this bead when Old Tan was unprepared. I didn't know it was a lightning explosion bead. If you don't believe me, you can ask Lord Lung Mian. I had a falling out with Old Tan because I stole this so-called lightning explosion bead. That's right. If I hadn't taken action, he would have died in Old Tan's hands. Lung Mian took a step forward and stood beside Ningyu. After rescuing him, I found out from him that Black Whirlwind was killed by Old Tan and the others. Lung Mian, you should know that lying to me is not good. Scorpion still didn't believe Ning Yu's words. However, when he wanted to ask Lung Mian again, his expression changed drastically and he quickly retreated. Swoosh. Chapter 5:21. Ridicule Kaboom. The thunder explosion pearl exploded in front of Poison Scorpion. The shockwave from the huge explosion rushed towards Poison Scorpion, causing him to be flustered. Even though Poison Scorpion's cultivation had reached the peak of the late-stage yin-yang realm, he could not help but feel powerless when facing the explosion of the thunder explosion pearl at such a close distance. After all, the explosion of the thunder explosion pearl was equivalent to the self-destruction of an early-stage yin-yang realm warrior. Swoosh! As Poison Scorpion was fully focused on resisting the shock wave of the thunder explosion pearl, he did not notice that Ningyu and Lung Mian had turned into shadows and entered the storage ring at the moment of the explosion. Damn it! Poison Scorpion shouted angrily as he resisted the shock wave of the thunder explosion pearl. Lung Mian, you what? However, when Poison Scorpion looked around, there was no sign of Lung Mian. Not even a strand of hair was left. Even a mid-stage primal core warrior had disappeared. Although the power of the thunder explosion pearl is very strong, Lung Mian should be able to withstand it, right? Poison Scorpion's mouth was slightly agape, his face full of confusion. Although Lung Mian was much weaker than him, he was still a late-stage yin-yang realm warrior. There was no reason for him to not even have a strand of hair left in the explosion of the thunder explosion pearl. Oh no! Suddenly, Poison Scorpion seemed to have thought of something, and his face darkened. Lung Mian and that mid-stage primal core warrior must have betrayed us. Poison Scorpion's face darkened. He even wanted to personally capture Lung Mian and execute him on the spot. Boom! Poison Scorpion's momentary distraction caused him to be hit in the chest by the shockwave of the explosion, and his body flew straight out. A crisp sound rang out in the hall. Obviously, this sound came from Poison Scorpion's body hitting the wall. Poison Scorpion did not dare to think too much. The Yuan Qi in his body surged out and formed a protective shield around him. Chi-Chi. The protective shield made a sizzling sound when it came into contact with the shockwave of the thunder explosion pearl. Seeing this, Poison Scorpion secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this lightning explosion bead was only a low-grade lightning explosion bead. Its explosive power was only equivalent to the self-detonation of an early-stage yin-yang realm warrior. If it was a mid-grade lightning explosion bead, he would have suffered a fatal blow. Even so, in order to withstand the aftermath of the thunder explosion pearl's explosion, Poison Scorpion's strength was directly reduced by 30%, and he was only around 70% of his peak strength. I was careless. I was really careless this time. I almost failed miserably. When the aftermath of the explosion had completely dissipated, Scorpion's expression turned solemn. He secretly made up his mind that no matter what he encountered in the future, he would not be as careless as he was today. The opponent he had met today was a mid-Yuan Dan stage martial artist. If he were to meet a late yin-yang stage martial artist in the future, he could very well lose his life if he were to be so careless. Humph. Lung Yin, I know you guys are hiding around. I'll give you a chance. Come out and explain everything clearly. I can let bygones be bygones. Scorpion released his perception, probing the area back and forth. Scorpion knew very well that the Evil Cloud Pavilion was protected by an array formation. Given Lung Mian and a mid-stage primal core cultivator, they would definitely not be able to escape. In other words, there was a high chance that Lung Mian and the mid-stage primal core cultivator were still in the palace. Ningyu, why don't we go out and fight it out with him? Within the fractured space, a storage ring lay flat. In the storage ring, the Dark Emperor frowned. His strength has been reduced by at least 30%. If we attack together, we might be able to fight it out with him. Ningyu pondered for a moment before saying, You guys go out and stall Scorpion first. You must buy me 10 minutes. Understood. The Dark Emperor gritted his teeth. Then his figure flashed, and he left the storage ring. A dog? Seeing the Dark Emperor appear from the void, Scorpion frowned slightly, feeling a little incredulous. Naturally, Scorpion could tell that the Dark Emperor's cultivation was only at peak primal core stage. Logically speaking, only those who had reached the yin-yang stage could tear through the void. How did this black dog at peak primal core stage do it? You're a dog. Your whole family are dogs. The Dark Emperor was a little annoyed and said angrily, "Why aren't you kneeling and kowtowing after seeing your grandfather? How arrogant." After following by Ning Yu's side for so long, the Dark Emperor had become much wiser. The Dark Emperor knew that with their strength, it would be difficult for them to block Scorpion for 10 minutes. If they could hold on for 10 minutes without bloodshed, it would naturally be excellent. Hee, a dog actually dares to say that I'm arrogant. Sure enough, hearing the Dark Emperor's words, the corner of Scorpion's mouth curled up. He smiled and said, "It's been a long time since I've eaten dog meat. Today I'll crash." However, before Scorpion could finish his sentence, he raised his eyebrows and looked at the place where the Dark Emperor had come out from. Looking at the figures that suddenly appeared, Scorpion's expression finally changed, and his eyes became slightly gloomy. Other than Lung Mian, there was actually a martial artist at the peak of the late-stage yin-yang realm, Alchemy Hall Master. As for Wang Haiba and the other mid-stage and early-stage yin-yang realm martial artists, they were directly filtered out by Scorpion. After all, for martial artists like Wang Haiba, even though he was severely injured and only had 70% of his peak strength, killing them would be a piece of cake. Other than the peak late-stage yin-yang realm Alchemy Hall Master, another martial artist also attracted the attention of Scorpion. "Demonic Eye, have you betrayed us too?" Scorpion's heart was filled with extreme shock. He had seen the Demonic Eye before, who had been following Ouyang Ba for many years, acting like his right-hand man, helping him with some of the inconveniences. What's going on? Why has the Demonic Eye betrayed us too? In Scorpion's heart, even if Lung Mian had betrayed them, he did not believe that the Demonic Eye would betray them too. After all, the Demonic Eye had been following Ouyang Ba for many years. Thus, he should be very familiar with the strength of Ouyang Ba and the royal family. After understanding the strength of the royal family, any cultivator who still wanted to rebel was either a fool or an idiot. The Demonic Eye stood in place without saying a word. Now that the Demonic Eye was under Ning Yu's direct control, Ning Yu had ordered the Demonic Eye to cooperate with the Hall Master and the others to hold Scorpion back. He did not allow the Demonic Eye to communicate with Scorpion. Seeing that the Demonic Eye had ignored him, Scorpion's chest heaved rapidly, on the verge of exploding in anger. "Scorpion, don't be angry." At this moment, the Dark Emperor's voice echoed in the area. "The Demonic Eye isn't betraying us by doing this. To be more precise, you've been suspected by the Emperor, and the Emperor wants to get rid of you." "That's impossible," Scorpion said coldly. "Old Crane has just met the Emperor. If the Emperor suspects us, how could he let Old Crane return to Snow Domain Pavilion so easily? Don't you dare try to scare us." "Sigh, Scorpion, I really feel bad for you." The Dark Emperor sighed and said seriously, "You've been working hard for the Emperor, but you've ended up being suspected by him. I'll give you a chance now. Submit to Ning Yu, and I'll put in a good word for you in front of Ning Yu, earning you a high position." At this moment, the Dark Emperor looked like a charlatan. Chapter 522. Chapter 522. Burning Life. Ning Yu, are you saying that the mid-primal core stage young man was Ning Yu? Scorpion's eyes widened, and he had an expression of sudden realization as he said, "I was wondering why his strength was so formidable." "So, he is the Danwu Academy's Sacred Institution's core disciple, Ning Yu. You know Ning Yu? That's great. If that's the case, your status might even rise." The Dark Emperor was naturally happy that Scorpion was so cooperative. His mission was to stall for time. As long as he could hold on for 10 minutes, the rest would be left to Ning Yu. So, the Dark Emperor said, "How about it? Think about it. I'll give you 10 minutes to think about it." "Oomph." He's just a mid-primal core stage kid. Even if he was the dean of Donwu College, I would still kill him, much less a core disciple of Donwu College. As soon as the word kill was said, Scorpion rushed towards the Dark Emperor. Scorpion had long since disliked the Dark Emperor. A dog actually wanted to recruit him? Why didn't he look in a mirror? The ignorant were truly fearless. Scorpion decided to start with the dog, the Dark Emperor, and let him know what cruelty was. Damn, why isn't he playing by the rules? The Dark Emperor was no fool. The moment Scorpion made his move, his figure flashed, and he hid behind the Master of Alchemy and Lung Mian. For someone as strong as Scorpion, even if he made a move, he would not be of much help. He had used a trick to stall for 3 minutes. That was his limit. The remaining 7 minutes would depend on the Master of Alchemy and the others. Boom! The Master of Alchemy stepped forward first. His fist carried a violent wave of yuan qi, and it collided with Scorpion's fist. Although my strength is only 70% of my peak, you should know that you can't stop me. Oh no! The moment the two fists collided, Scorpion did not forget to mock him. However, before he could finish his mocking words, his pupils constricted and he wanted to retract his fist. That was because he discovered that not only did the Alchemist Hall Master's fist contain a violent fluctuation of yuan qi, there was also a frightening fluctuation of soul force. Early stage, 8th grade soul force. The strength of the martial artist's soul force had reached a terrifying early stage rank, 8. Even in the entire Great Xia Kingdom, there were only 2 or 3 people with early stage 8th grade soul force. How did this late stage, yin-yang realm martial artist do it? It's not good to be distracted now. Just as Poison Scorpion was slightly distracted, the Alchemist Hall Master let out a low roar and punched out once again. This time, it landed squarely on Poison Scorpion's chest. The huge recoil caused Scorpion to retreat several steps before stabilizing. Poochie! After stabilizing himself, Scorpion spat out a mouthful of blood, his face turning pale. Good, very good. You have completely angered me. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Scorpion waved his hands quickly. Buzz! As Scorpion waved his hands, the surrounding yuan qi seemed to be affected, and it actually surged towards Scorpion. Oh no! Scorpion is trying to activate the Evil Cloud Pavilion's internal array formation. Hurry up and stop him. Lung Mian knew a lot about the Evil Cloud Pavilion. When he saw Scorpion's movement, he quickly shouted, "The internal array formation of the Evil Cloud Pavilion has a strangulation function. Once it's activated, even a late-stage yin-yang realm martial artist will die. Don't let him succeed." Lung Mian looked very anxious. He even burned his yuan qi to increase his speed. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Scorpion. Then, a green flame appeared on Lung Mian's fist as he punched towards Scorpion's head. Attack! At the side, the Alchemist Hall Master, Evil Eye, and the rest did not dare to delay. They followed Lung Mian and joined the battle. As for Wang Haibo, Ma Wei, and the rest, they wandered around the edge of the battlefield, waiting for an opportunity to attack. 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. These words were true when used on Scorpion. In a one-on-one fight, his strength was the strongest in this area. Including the Alchemist Hall Master, no one could withstand more than 10 moves from him. However, the Alchemist Hall Master's side had the advantage in numbers. They were evenly matched with Scorpion. Damn it! Damn it! I'm going to tear you guys apart. Since it was a draw, Scorpion naturally could not activate the internal array formation of the Evil Cloud Pavilion. He could only focus on fighting. Apart from the Alchemist Hall Master, Evil Eye, who was at the mid-stage yin-yang realm, gave him the most pressure. Evil Eye was quite capable since he could become Ouyang Ba's right-hand man. He was caught by Ningyu because he was careless. Lung Mian's cultivation base was also at the late-stage yin-yang realm. His strength should not be underestimated. Under the pressure of the 3 powerhouses, Scorpion could only fight with all his strength. He did not dare to activate the internal array formation of the Evil Cloud Pavilion. 5 minutes left. The Dark Emperor had already hidden in the corner of the main hall and was counting the time. He had delayed for 3 minutes at the beginning, and now another 2 minutes had passed. In other words, as long as the Alchemist Hall Master and the rest could hold on for another 5 minutes, Ning Yu would attack. Judging from the situation on the battlefield, it seemed like it would not be too difficult for the Alchemist Hall Master and the rest to hold on for 5 minutes. Since they can hold on for 5 minutes, there's nothing for me to do here. Why don't I... As the Dark Emperor was about to return to his spatial ring, the situation changed. Scorpion's aura was gradually growing stronger. Peak Yin-Yang Realm Mastery Phase. In just 3 seconds, Scorpion's aura had recovered to its peak. His remaining 70% of his strength was instantly restored. Bang! In fact, before the Dark Emperor even had the time to be surprised, he saw the nearby poisoned scorpion's body tremble, and then a clear sound erupted from within his body. Following the sound, Scorpion's aura skyrocketed as if something inside his body had been unlocked. Peak Yin-Yang Realm. In just a brief moment, Scorpion's aura had reached the peak Yin-Yang Realm. Back off! The Alchemist Hall Master decisively took a few steps back when he sensed the powerful aura around Scorpion. Crack! Scorpion did not stop the Alchemist Hall Master and the rest. Instead, he twisted his neck and said in a sinister tone, "You've made me lose a life-saving technique. I can only vent my hatred by killing all of you. 5 minutes left. Hold on no matter what. Buzz, buzz." At this time, the Dark Emperor did not choose to hide. Instead, he flew into the air and his body gradually grew larger. In the next moment, a powerful aura was emitted from the Dark Emperor's body. This aura broke through the limits of the Primal Core realm and reached the early stage Yin-Yang realm. In fact, the aura was still growing stronger. Middle stage Yin-Yang realm. Late stage Yin-Yang realm. In just a few seconds, the Dark Emperor's aura rose from the peak of the Primal Core realm to the late-stage Yin-Yang realm. Hee, I didn't expect you to be a heaven-devouring hound. Furthermore, you're the Emperor of the Heaven-Devouring Hound clan, the purple gold Heaven-Devouring Hound. Chapter 523. Chapter 523. Introduction Aura Lock, Noisy. A cold glint appeared in the Dark Emperor's eyes. After shouting in a low voice, he immediately rushed out and charged towards Poison Scorpion. Scorpion was right. The reason why the Dark Emperor was able to raise his cultivation from the pinnacle of the Primal Core realm to the advanced stage of the Yin-Yang realm in such a short period of time was based on burning his life force. It could be said that the Dark Emperor's life force was decreasing rapidly with every passing second. Fortunately, the Dark Emperor was a purple gold sky swallowing hound. Otherwise, with the strength of his body, he would only be able to last 30 seconds at most. Even so, the Dark Emperor could only last for 2 minutes. You guys hurry up and recuperate. I'll block Scorpion for 2 minutes. The Dark Emperor did not forget to turn around and shout as he charged towards Scorpion. "Oomph, you want to block me for 2 minutes?" Scorpion snorted coldly when he heard the Dark Emperor's words. "Dream on." Then, Scorpion stomped on the ground, and the aura of the pinnacle of the Yin-Yang realm charged towards the Dark Emperor. TSK, TSK. Scorpion, who had reached the pinnacle of the Yin-Yang realm, had an unusually violent aura. The surrounding air even made sizzling sounds under the pressure of Scorpion's violent aura. Although the Dark Emperor had burned his life force to raise his cultivation to the advanced stage of the Yin-Yang realm, he still felt a little powerless under the pressure of Scorpion's powerful aura. Facing the overwhelming aura, the purplish gold wings on the Dark Emperor's back flapped rapidly and several gusts of wind swept out. Under normal circumstances, even a mid-stage Yin-Yang realm martial artist might not be able to withstand the strong winds produced by the Dark Emperor. However, such a strong wind exploded the moment it came into contact with Scorpion's aura and disappeared without a trace. On the other hand, the Dark Emperor was hit by the aura and his body was on the verge of collapsing in midair. In the next moment, the Dark Emperor spat out a mouthful of blood. His already weak body became even weaker. His face was extremely pale. Hee, a sky-swallowing hound that has yet to mature has no way of resisting me. After succeeding in his attack, Scorpion sinisterly laughed. His hands tore through space and instantly appeared beside the Dark Emperor. The purple-gold sky devouring hound's entire body is a treasure. Its brain is a great tonic. Its eyeballs can be made into magical treasures, and its wings can be made into flying robes. TSK, TSK. If that's the case, I didn't lose out today. Poison Scorpion smiled wickedly. Then his right fist turned into a palm, chopping down from the sky. Scorpion's palm was powerful and heavy, containing extremely violent yuan qi fluctuations. With the Dark Emperor's weak state, if he was unlucky enough to be hit, he would probably be crippled even if he didn't die. Damn it, there's still 30 seconds left. Looking at the palm that was gradually expanding in her eyes, the Dark Emperor roared as the purplish gold wings on her back flapped furiously, wanting to leave this region. On the other side, the Alchemist Hall Master, Evil Eye, and the others were recovering at full speed. As long as they recovered to their peak state, there was a high chance that they could hold off Scorpion for 3 minutes. Therefore, the Dark Emperor was determined to block Scorpion for 2 minutes no matter what. Even if he had to suffer heavy injuries, he would not hesitate to do so. Fight! Burn faster! Seeing that he could not escape, the Dark Sovereign stopped. However, the aura of the Dark Emperor, who was originally at the late stage of the Yin-Yang realm, actually rose once again. Yin-Yang late stage. Peak late Yin-Yang realm. Yin-Yang realm. Pinnacle. In just a second, the Dark Emperor's aura rose from the late stage of the Yin-Yang realm to the pinnacle of the Yin-Yang realm. Just like Scorpion. Mad dog, what a mad dog. Scorpion was no fool. He naturally knew that the reason why the Dark Emperor could raise his aura to the pinnacle of the Yin-Yang realm in such a short period of time was completely based on the excessive burning of life force. The Dark Emperor's originally pitch-black fur turned white in the blink of an eye. Right now, the Dark Emperor could no longer be called the Dark Emperor. He could change his name to White Emperor. This was because there was no longer a single spot of black fur on the Dark Emperor's body. It had all turned white. Scorpion, if you want to attack Ningyu, you have a step over my corpse. A hoarse voice came out of the Dark Emperor's mouth. In the next moment, the Dark Emperor tore through the void and appeared in front of Scorpion. Swish! The Dark Emperor's huge tail shot through the air and attacked Scorpion's head. Take the initiative. At this moment, the Dark Emperor decided to take the initiative. If he could heavily injure Scorpion in the last 30 seconds, not only would he be able to reduce the burden on the Alchemist Hall Master and the others, he would also be able to create an opportunity for Ningyu. Mad dog! There is only one word in Scorpion's mind: delay. As long as he delayed for a while, the black dog in front of him, the white dog's strength would drop to a freezing point. At that time, wanting to kill it would be as easy as blowing off dust. However, how could the Dark Emperor give Scorpion a chance? After appearing beside Scorpion, the Dark Emperor suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the wings on his back. Swish! The wings were stained with blood, and the frequency of their fluttering increased, catching up to Scorpion in an instant. My cultivation is the same as yours. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Seeing that the Dark Emperor had caught up, Scorpion stopped running and floated in midair. Boom! Gathering all the origin energy in his body on his wrist, Scorpion threw out a punch and came into close contact with the Dark Emperor's tail. Gotcha! Just as the Scorpion's fist came into contact with the Dark Emperor's tail, a clear cracking sound, accompanied by a pig-like scream, resounded in the hall. Swish! Swish! They separated after a single touch. After the exchange, the Dark Emperor and Scorpion were both sent flying backward. Although Scorpion's fist had been shattered, the Dark Emperor was not in a good state. He fell heavily to the ground, and the aura of the peak Yin-Yang state dropped like a roller coaster. Advanced Yin-Yang state, late primal core state, early true martial state, early Khanate state. In an instant, the Dark Emperor's aura dropped from the peak Yin-Yang state to the early Khanate state, and it was even showing signs of dropping. Damn it, damn it. At this moment, Scorpion was like an enraged bull, his eyes revealing an extremely gloomy expression. He had failed miserably. Today, he had really failed miserably. He was at the peak yin-yang state, and he had used a secret technique to raise his cultivation to the peak yin-yang state. Yet, he was unable to gain the upper hand against a peak primal core state sky, swallowing dog. Not only did he not gain the upper hand, but his right hand had also suffered a fatal injury. If he did not receive treatment in time, he might lose his right hand. The purple gold sky, swallowing hound, wasn't the king of the sky, swallowing hound clan for nothing. The moment Scorpion's fist came into contact with the Dark Emperor's tail, Scorpion felt an extremely corrosive liquid enter his fist. If he hadn't forcefully suppressed it, his right hand would have been crippled. You must die today. No one in the world can save you. Scorpion's left hand cracked, and his originally gloomy expression turned even darker. Chapter 5:24. Attack cough cough. The Dark Emperor coughed dryly twice, then coldly said to Poison Scorpion, "You don't feel good now either, do you? Do you think you can guarantee your safety just by sealing off the veins on your right wrist? I can tell you very clearly, you are too naive. If you want to live, you only have two choices. First, abandon your right hand. Second, find a peak yin-yang stage martial artist to treat your injuries." Hearing the threatening words of the Dark Emperor, a hint of coldness surfaced in Poison Scorpion's eyes. As a martial artist at the peak of the late yin-yang stage, Poison Scorpion was very clear about his injuries. Although the Dark Emperor was exaggerating, in reality, the strength he could use right now was only 60% of his peak strength. Humph. Before that, I'll take your head first. Poison Scorpion snorted coldly, then rose from the ground and charged towards the Dark Emperor. Poison Scorpion's speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he appeared beside the Dark Emperor and threw a punch towards the Dark Emperor's head. In order to kill the Dark Emperor in one move, Poison Scorpion did not hold back and used his full strength. Swish, swish, swish. However, just as Poison Scorpion's fist was about to land on the Dark Emperor's body, the Alchemist Hall Master and the others who were recuperating on the other side suddenly moved. The Dark Emperor had bought the Alchemist Hall Master and the others 2 minutes to recuperate. Although 2 minutes was not long, it was enough for the Alchemist Hall Master to recover. If a peak Yuan Dan Black Dog could go all out, then if the Alchemist Hall Master and the others did not go all out, they would not have a good ending when Ningyu came out. Therefore, when they saw Poison Scorpion rushing towards the Dark Emperor, even Evil Eye and Lung Mian instantly took action, blocking in front of the Dark Emperor. Bang! 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 Poison Scorpion was indeed a martial artist at the peak of the late yin-yang stage. Facing the 3 figures that suddenly appeared in front of him, he did not retreat, but instead attacked 3 times. After being hit by Poison Scorpion's fist, the Alchemist Hall Master and the others were not affected much. Instead, they fought with Poison Scorpion. If it was the Poison Scorpion at his peak, the Alchemist Hall Master and the others would naturally not be able to withstand his fist. Right now, Poison Scorpion only had 60% of his peak strength, and his aura faintly showed signs of decreasing to the late yin-yang stage. In this state, Poison Scorpion was firmly suppressed by the combined forces of the Alchemist Hall Master and the others. I'm going to die of anger. I'm going to die of anger. At this moment, Scorpion was furious to the extreme. Originally, he thought that after getting rid of an Empress, the remaining Alchemist Hall Master and the others would not be a threat. Now, it seemed that he had been thinking too much. The Alchemist Hall Master and the others all had their own trump cards. Needless to say, the Alchemist Temple Master's cultivation had reached the peak of the yin-yang late stage, and even the strength of his soul power had reached the early stage. Evil Eye. His pair of evil eyes were abnormally terrifying. If one was the slightest bit careless, they would fall into his trap. Cold Face could be said to be the person Scorpion understood the most. However, even Scorpion couldn't see through this person who understood him the most. The combat power that Lung Mian unleashed was beyond his usual state. It could be described as extraordinary. The only thing we can do now is to pass the news to Old Crane. Only then will we have a chance of survival. Scorpion knew that a prolonged battle like this would only be disadvantageous to him. The moment his cultivation dropped to late-stage Yin-Yang realm, he would be like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, a fish on a chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. Rumble. In the next moment, Scorpion forcefully blasted out a fist radiance, forcing the Alchemist Hall Master and the others away. Then, Scorpion grabbed at the air with his left hand. In an instant, a spatial rift appeared. This is bad. We mustn't let Scorpion spread the news. Coldface's eyes were filled with horror when he saw Scorpion's actions. He shouted, "Everyone, don't hold back. Once Old Crane finds out about what happened here, we'll be annihilated." Old Crane was a martial artist at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm. His strength was not something Scorpion could compare to. Coldface was right. As long as Scorpion spread the news, with Old Crane's strength, he would probably arrive here in less than a minute. When that time came, they would have no chance of survival. "Ha ha! You're only thinking of stopping me now? Don't you think it's a little too late?" Scorpion threw his head back and laughed maniacally when he saw Lung Mian and the others acting as if they were facing a great enemy. Then, he flicked his sleeve and a cold ray of light shot into the spatial rift. Crack! Then, the spatial rift closed and everything returned to normal. "I've already sent the news to the Evil Cloud Pavilion. It won't take long for Old Crane to receive the news." Scorpion revealed an evil smile and said sinisterly, "You have two choices. 1. Submit to me. 2. Die. Is there a third choice?" "The third choice, huh? Of course. Who?" The corners of Scorpion's mouth curled up. Just as he was about to speak, his expression changed drastically. He looked around vigilantly and shouted, "Come out, you sneaky bastard. As you wish." As soon as the cold voice fell, the space in midair suddenly split open. A huge sword wave that was as thick as a person's waist shot out explosively from the void. "What?" Scorpion's eyes revealed a trace of horror as he looked at the huge sword wave that was rapidly approaching him. This was because the violent primordial energy contained in the sword wave was even more than the total amount of primordial energy in his body. Monstrous primordial energy revolved around the sword wave and poured down. Protective barrier, activate. Scorpion's expression was extremely grave. Primordial energy gushed out of his body like it was free, forming a protective barrier around him. Moreover, to be on the safe side, Scorpion took out the top-grade heaven-grade flying sword that he carried with him. It hovered above his head and formed a second line of defense. After the second line of defense was formed, Scorpion was still worried. He forced out a few drops of blood essence and formed a third line of defense on the surface of his skin. Scorpion's eyes revealed a hint of ferocity after the third line of defense was formed. "As long as I can withstand this sword wave, I'll kill all of you at all costs," Scorpion said viciously. "Chi! Chi!" However, as soon as Scorpion's vicious words fell, a crisp sound rang out in the hall. "What?" Scorpion's eyes widened, and his face was filled with disbelief. He discovered that the primordial energy protective barrier he had set up had dissipated into thin air the moment it came into contact with the sword wave. One had to know that he had poured all the primordial energy in his body into the protective barrier. How could it have been destroyed so easily? That's just too much nonsense. However, what surprised Scorpion even more was yet to come. After the sword wave destroyed the primordial energy protective barrier, it immediately blasted towards the top-grade heaven-grade flying sword above Scorpion's head. Crack! Without any fancy moves, the top-grade heaven-grade flying sword was instantly split into two by the sword wave. Seeing his top-grade heaven-grade flying sword split into two by the sword wave, Scorpion's eyes were filled with shock. Chapter 525. Kill. The flying sword that was destroyed by the sword wave was no ordinary flying sword. It was a top-grade, heaven-grade flying sword. What kind of sword wave could be so powerful that it could destroy a top-grade, heaven-grade flying sword in an instant? Hiss. Scorpion was still in a daze when the sword wave came into contact with his skin. However, Scorpion's blood essence formed a third line of defense on the surface of his skin. For a moment, the sword wave could not break through his defense. Ha ha! I thought the sword wave would be powerful. I didn't expect it to be unable to break through my blood essence defense. Scorpion was already prepared to fight to the death. Who would have thought that the sword wave could not break through his blood essence defense? Is that so? As soon as Scorpion finished speaking, a crack appeared in the void, and a figure flew out from it. The martial artist who flew out was none other than Ningyu. Scorpion, do you really think I can't break through your blood essence defense? The corners of Ningyu's lips curled up slightly, and a hint of disdain appeared between his brows. He said, I'll give you two choices now. Submit to me or die. As soon as the word die was said, Ningyu made a grabbing motion in the void with both hands. A blood-red, flying sword immediately appeared in his hand. In the next instant, the flying sword in Ningyu's hand moved quickly. As the flying sword moved, a shocking sword wave that was no weaker than the previous one separated from the flying sword. Scorpion was dumbfounded when he saw the second sword wave appear in the air. A look of despair appeared on his face. The first sword wave had already broken through two of his defenses. If the second sword wave wanted to break through his blood essence defense, it would be as easy as pie. Poison Scorpion felt a little bitter in his mouth. If he didn't want to die, he could only choose to rely on Ningyu. However, Scorpion was not someone who would give up easily. He said in a low voice, Ningyu, don't be too happy. I've already sent the news to the Evil Cloud Pavilion. I believe Old Crane will be here soon. Oh, Ningyu nodded, then took out a crystal ball from his bosom and said, the information you spoke of should be in this crystal ball, right? How did you get my crystal ball? That's impossible. Scorpion yelled as if he had seen a ghost. He had already thrown the crystal ball into the spatial crack. So how could Ningyu have it? Ningyu is only an intermediate primal core stage, ancient martial art practitioner. Being able to grasp spatial energy at the intermediate primal core stage. Wasn't this too abnormal? What Poisonous Scorpion didn't know was that the one controlling space wasn't Ningyu, but the Red Demon's sword. The Red Fiend's sword was a Pinnacle King rank flying sword. It could easily tear through the void for a short period of time. Nothing is impossible. In this world, everything is possible. Ningyu shrugged, then exerted a little force on his wrist and crushed the crystal ball. What shattered was not only the crystal ball, but also Scorpion's hope of survival. So, have you considered whether to submit to me or choose death? Ningyu casually tossed the fragments of the crystal ball away and said calmly, my patience is limited. Submit to me, and you can live. If you choose death, I can grant your wish now. You want me to submit to you? Dream on. Scorpion snorted coldly. This is the Evil Cloud Pavilion as long as You're wasting my time. Before Scorpion could finish speaking, Ningyu shouted in a low voice, and then he controlled the second sword wave to slash towards Scorpion. Pooh! The first sword wave was already about to break through Scorpion's blood essence defense. With the addition of the second sword wave, it naturally broke through Scorpion's blood essence defense easily. After breaking through Scorpion's blood essence defense, Ningyu didn't intend to hold back. Instead, he controlled the two sword waves and slashed at Scorpion's neck and heart. Crack! Poochie! Two crisp sounds rang out in the hall. The first sword wave expended a lot, and Scorpion's body was also abnormally tough. Hence, the sword wave did not chop off Scorpion's head. It only penetrated a little deeper. As for the second sword wave, its power was incomparably powerful, directly piercing through Scorpion's heart. Ningyu, you're not. Scorpion stood on the spot and extended his hand to point at Ningyu. He wanted to say something, but before he finished speaking, he fell to the ground with a thud. At this moment, the peak late-stage Yin-Yang Realm Scorpion was killed by Ningyu. Silence. Silence. After Scorpion died, the entire hall became abnormally quiet, deathly silent. The Dark Emperor knew Ning Yu's strength, so he was not too shocked. The alchemy hall master, Evil Eye, and the rest did not know that even though they were controlled by Ning Yu, they only obeyed Ning Yu on the surface all along. After all, Ning Yu had used crooked methods to control every single one of them and had not defeated them head-on. Everything had undergone a subtle change after they saw Ning Yu kill Scorpion in a domineering manner. It turned out that Ning Yu's true strength was so strong. That was a peak late-stage yin-yang realm cultivator. Ning Yu was able to kill him with his mid-stage yuan core cultivation. If it was before, they would definitely not believe it. But now that they saw it with their own eyes, they had to believe it. Gulp! A moment later, the alchemy hall master was the first to swallow a mouthful of saliva. His eyes revealed a dignified expression. In just a short period of time, Ning Yu had grown to the point where he could sit on the same level as him, or even a little stronger. If Ning Yu was given more time, he might really be able to kill his way into the corpse sect. At this moment, such a thought appeared in the alchemy hall master's mind. What the alchemy hall master didn't know was that Ning Yu had prepared for so long to use the solitaire of the ultimate state. In order to use the solitaire of the ultimate state, Ning Yu's primordial qi had been used up. There was not even a trace of primordial qi left. Even the supreme primordial crystals in the storage ring had been used up by Ning Yu. Otherwise, with the primordial qi in Ning Yu's body, it would be difficult for him to use the solitaire of the ultimate state once, let alone a second time. He definitely wouldn't be able to use it. Focus on recuperating and wait for my order. After dealing with Scorpion, Ning Yu first issued an order to the alchemy hall master and the others, then walked toward the Dark Emperor without looking back. Dark Emperor, Scorpion is a peak late-stage yin-yang realm cultivator. He must have a lot of treasures and pills on him. If you don't plunder them, I won't be polite. Not long after, Ning Yu came to the Dark Emperor's side and said, Scram, all the treasures and pills on Scorpion are mine. No one is allowed to take them. The Dark Emperor cursed and said angrily, If it weren't for you, Ouch. The Dark Emperor stretched out his hand to warn Ning Yu. However, it triggered the wounds on his body, and he let out a series of screams. Rest assured and recuperate. I'll keep Scorpion for you. Without your permission, no one is allowed to plunder the treasures and pills on him. Ning Yu waved his hand and gestured for the Dark Emperor to calm down. Hurry up and go into the storage ring to recuperate. I'm counting on you to fight for me when I deal with Old Crane later. Fight my ass. Old Crane is at the peak of yin-yang realm. I'm not that capable. The Dark Emperor's figure flashed, and he used all his strength to enter the storage ring. At the same time, the Dark Emperor's words rang in Ning Yu's ears. Chapter 526. Sword Tomb, of course. The supreme grade origin crystals in the storage ring can be... What? All the supreme grade origin crystals belong to you? Ning Yu waved his hand when he heard the Dark Emperor's words. But soon, Ning Yu came to his senses and said with a pained expression, Dark Emperor, leave some for me. That's over 400,000 supreme grade origin crystals. If someone else said this, Ning Yu might not have any reaction. Over 400,000 supreme grade origin crystals. A normal martial artist might not be able to use them all even after a year or so. But the Dark Emperor was different. He had once used up 200,000 supreme grade origin crystals in a month. Over 400,000 supreme grade origin crystals were not even enough for him to use for 2 months. The supreme grade origin crystals in the storage ring had already been used up by Sun Jiangwen. If the Dark Emperor monopolized the supreme grade origin crystals as well, Ning Yu would really be penniless. Why do you have so much to say? I'll leave some for you. The Dark Emperor's impatient voice sounded in Ning Yu's ears. Ning Yu was relieved after hearing the Dark Emperor's words. However, Ning Yu was still worried. He secretly informed Sun Jiangwen and asked him to be careful. If necessary, he could hide some supreme grade origin crystals. Sun Jiangwen's face was bitter when he heard Ning Yu's instructions. To him, this was a difficult and thankless task. He might offend both the Dark Emperor and Ningyu. Ningyu did not care what Sun Jianwen thought. After arranging everything, he sat down with his legs crossed and began to cultivate using the spirit transformation technique. Although they had killed Poison Scorpion together, it also gave Ningyu a wake-up call. One must know that Poison Scorpion was only a martial artist at the peak of Yin Yang stage. His strength was definitely a level lower than Elder Crane's. The Hall Master and the others could stop Poison Scorpion for 10 minutes, but they might not be able to stop Elder Crane for 10 minutes. As long as he couldn't stall Old Crane for 10 minutes, Ningyu wouldn't be able to unleash his ultimate state of solitaire. Without solitaire, it was impossible for him to defeat Old Crane. I need to think of a countermeasure. Ningyu recuperated while thinking of a countermeasure. Old Crane was a martial artist at the peak of the Yin-Yang realm. If he was not careful, they would all be wiped out. Ningyu had to be extra careful. All right. Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something. Without any time to rest, he hurriedly went to Poison Scorpion's side and searched its body. This doesn't make sense. Both Elder Tan and Black Whirlwind have Thunder Explosion Pearls. Why doesn't Scorpion have any? After a short while, Ningyu stopped and frowned. After using a Lightning Explosion Pearl, Ningyu still had a low-grade Lightning Explosion Pearl on him. The explosion of a low-grade Lightning Explosion Pearl was equivalent to the self-detonation of a primary Yin-Yang realm martial artist. If he could get his hands on a few more Lightning Explosion Pearls, he might be able to get rid of old Lung Mian. I have a few questions for you. After a moment of silence, Ningyu asked Lung Mian, "Do you have any Lightning Explosion Pearls with you?" Lung Mian was originally recuperating. When he heard Ningyu's question, he quickly replied, "The Lightning Explosion Pearls are extremely precious. They're almost priceless. I don't have any with me." "Does Poison Scorpion have any?" Ningyu asked with a frown. "Poison Scorpion has a middle-grade Lightning Explosion Pearl. As for where he keeps it, I don't know," Lung Mian replied. "That's good." Ningyu thought about it and asked, "Do you know much about the Evil Cloud Pavilion?" "What I mean is, do you know where Poison Scorpion most likely keeps the Lightning Explosion Pearls?" Ningyu added, afraid that Lung Mian did not understand what he meant. Poison Scorpion always carries a middle-grade Lightning Explosion Pearl with him. As for why he didn't bring it with him this time, I don't know. Lung Mian shook his head and changed the topic. "However, I know a place that even Poison Scorpion can't enter." "Oh." Ningyu raised his brow and said calmly, "Bring me there." One must be brave enough to take risks if one wanted to reap greater rewards. As the saying went, one must have ideals. Otherwise, what was the difference between one and a salted fish? Old Crane's cultivation base was at the peak of Yin-Yang stage. In terms of raw strength, Ningyu and the others did not have the upper hand. They had to think of a way to defeat or even kill Old Crane. "Let's go." Lung Mian did not hesitate and immediately left the main hall with Ningyu. The Evil Cloud Pavilion was huge. That was Ningyu's first thought after leaving the main hall. Under normal circumstances, Ningyu would definitely take a good look at the Evil Cloud Pavilion. However, this was a critical period, so he had to remind Lung Mian to hurry up. Soon, Ningyu and Lung Mian stopped in front of a bronze door. "Even Poison Scorpion can't enter this place?" Looking at the bronze door in front of him, Ningyu was a little puzzled. Ningyu released his perception and found no waves of essence chi or soul power on the bronze door. In other words, the bronze door was just an ordinary stone door. There was nothing special about it. It's not difficult to open the bronze door. The difficult part is that there's a soul power barrier inside. Only those who have reached the pinnacle of soul power can enter. As he spoke, Lung Mian took a step forward and placed both hands on the bronze door, exerting a little force. Creak! As Lung Mian exerted force, the heavy bronze door was slowly pushed open. Soul power barrier. As soon as the bronze door was pushed open, Ningyu found a blurry barrier inside. To be precise, it was a blurry soul power barrier. Hiss! Ningyu released a little of his soul power, wanting to probe the soul power barrier. However, as soon as his soul power came into contact with the barrier, Ningyu gasped. His soul power was actually devoured by the soul power barrier in front of him. It does have some skills. Ningyu frowned and said to Lung Mian, "Go back and recuperate first. When all of you have recovered to your peak state, come back here to find me." No problem. Although Lung Mian was not optimistic about Ningyu being able to open the barrier, he did not show it. Instead, he responded and turned to leave. After Lung Mian left, Ningyu once again separated a bit of his soul power and began to probe. However, this time, Ningyu did not let his soul power come into contact with the barrier. Instead, he carefully probed around the barrier. Phew! After about 10 minutes, Ningyu let out a long breath, and a joyful expression appeared on his face. Fortunately, the soul power of the martial artist who set up this barrier is only at middle stage rank 8. Otherwise, it would be impossible for me to find a breakthrough in such a short time. In his previous life, Ningyu's soul power had reached peak rank 9. Naturally, he could find a flaw in the soul power barrier in front of him. Since he had found the flaw, Ningyu did not stay for too long. Instead, he separated a bit of his soul power and found a breakthrough point in the barrier. In a flash, he went in. F***CK. As soon as he passed through the barrier, Ningyu's eyes widened and his face revealed an extremely incredulous expression. Because the other side of the barrier was a little different from what he had imagined. There were no magic treasures, no elixirs, and even the vitality was extremely thin. Chapter 5:27. Ningyu's mouth was slightly agape as he stared at the sword graves in front of him. After a while, Ningyu came back to his senses and murmured, "To be protected by such a heaven-defying soul force barrier, these flying swords must be extraordinary." As he spoke, Ningyu released his perception, wanting to detect the rank of the flying swords. "Are you sure you're not F***king kidding me?" When Ningyu found out the rank of the flying swords on the sword graves, he was dumbfounded. Actually, it was no wonder that Ningyu was dumbfounded, because the highest rank of the flying swords on the sword graves was only a black-grade flying sword. There wasn't even a single earth-grade flying sword. There's a total of 998 flying swords here, 98 of which are black-grade flying swords and 900 of yellow-grade flying swords. No, there's another flying sword at the top. Suddenly, Ningyu raised his eyebrows, and his gaze stopped on the sword grave in the deepest part. There was a silver-white flying sword on the sword grave. The reason why this flying sword could attract Ningyu's attention was entirely because the flying sword was very special. There was not a trace of vitality fluctuation on it. In fact, Ningyu couldn't even determine its rank. The strength of Ningyu's soul force had reached the peak of 5th grade, and even he couldn't determine the rank of the flying sword. It was very likely that it was a king-grade flying sword like the Red Demon Sword. At the thought of this, Ningyu revealed a look of excitement. If he could obtain another king-grade flying sword at this time, it would be a great improvement to his strength. Having more skills was not a burden, and having more swords was not a hindrance. Ningyu simply released his perception and slowly approached the silver-white flying sword while paying attention to the changes in the sword graves around him. There were 998 sword graves and 998 flying swords. Although the rank of these flying swords was not considered high, Ningyu didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. The flying sword were not scary, but the sword formations were. If these flying swords were really part of the sword array and they suddenly attacked, Ningyu would have a hard time dealing with them. Voila! However, just as Ningyu walked to the center of the sword tomb, the flying swords around him suddenly flew up. Not good. The moment the flying sword flew up, Ningyu realized the seriousness of the problem. Sword array. From the arrangement of the flying swords, it was clearly a complete sword formation. Most importantly, the silver-white flying sword at the top of the sword tomb had also moved. Shio. When he didn't move, it was fine, but when he did, it was shocking. The silver-white flying sword, which originally did not have any yuan qi fluctuations, suddenly shot out a waist-thick yuan qi light beam from the sword tomb, which was completely swallowed by the silver-white flying sword. After devouring so much essence chi, the silver-white flying sword's grade began to soar. Lower yellow class. Mystic low rank. Earth rank lower rank. Heaven rank top grade. In just a few seconds, the silver-white flying sword, which had no grade, became a heaven rank top grade. It even had a faint impulse to break through to monarch rank. Led by the silver-white flying sword, the flying swords around him all attacked Ningyu. Damn it! Looking at the many flying swords in front of him, Ningyu cursed. He immediately took out the red demon sword and slashed out several sword rays. Ding! 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 The sword rays made contact with the flying swords, producing a crisp sound. But what surprised Ningyu was that although the sword rays he slashed out were powerful, they did not shatter the flying swords. Not even a yellow rank flying sword. Is this the power of a sword array? Ningyu quickly reacted and changed his strategy, attacking the silver-white flying sword instead. By now, Ningyu could basically conclude that the sword array in front of him was extremely powerful. As long as one of the flying swords was attacked, the other flying swords would transfer their essence chi to that flying sword. In other words, Ningyu was not fighting with one flying sword, but more than 900 flying swords. Unless it was powerful enough to shatter all 900 flying swords in one move, continuing the battle would be futile. Of course, there was another way to break the sword array, and that was to defeat the sword array's eye, which was the silver-white flying sword. Ningyu, focus on dealing with that heaven-rank top grade flying sword. Leave the other 900 flying swords to me. At that moment, the red demon separated from the red demon's sword and charged into the sword array with the good sword in his hand. Ningyu is not an indecisive person. He only froze for 0.01 seconds before he came back to his senses. The next moment, Ningyu injected all the essence chi in his consciousness that he had just recovered into the red demon's sword and slashed at the silver-white flying sword with a backhand swing. The red demon's participation in the battle immediately eliminated Ningyu's worries, allowing him to focus fully on fighting the silver-white flying sword. Ding! A crisp sound rang out as the red demon's sword and the silver-white flying sword separated upon contact. I see. I was overthinking. After one move, Ningyu felt slightly relieved. The silver-white flying sword was a heaven-ranked top-grade flying sword. Initially, Ningyu thought that it had developed a sword spirit, but from the looks of it, that was not the case. Since there was no sword spirit and the sword array was isolated by the red demon, the silver-white flying sword was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, facing the danger of being defeated by Ningyu at any time. Soul power, come out. The primordial chi in Ningyu's sea of consciousness was almost depleted. Therefore, he released his soul power at the peak of the 5th grade and wrapped it around the red demon's sword. Once again, he slashed at the silvery white flying sword. Crack! The red demon sword immediately displayed its might after being wrapped by the soul power. In the subsequent confrontation with the silver-white flying sword, it steadily gained the upper hand. After a few moves, the silver-white flying sword let out a cracking sound, and some cracks appeared. Buzz, buzz. When Ningyu wanted to attack the silver-white flying sword again, a crack suddenly appeared in the space above the sword tomb. Then, many flying swords burrowed into the crack. As for the silver-white flying sword, it also gave up fighting the red demon's sword and burrowed into the crack. The sudden change caused Ningyu to be slightly dumbfounded. What's going on? Ningyu stared at the crack in midair, his face filled with disbelief. Swoosh! At that moment, a figure suddenly flew out from the crack above the sword tomb and landed steadily in front of Ningyu. Not bad at all. You actually managed to activate the 9 return to 1 sword array that I left behind. The figure was in his 40s or 50s and had a dignified look on his face. He stared at Ningyu and sized him up, then smiled and said, "If you become my disciple, I can impart the cultivation method of the 9 return to 1 sword array to you." Ningyu was slightly stunned when he heard the middle-aged man's words. Become his disciple? Ningyu did not want to do that. Moreover, Ningyu could tell that the middle-aged man in front of him was only a soul projection. Ningyu was very resistant to becoming the disciple of a soul projection. In short, if you can't make me become your disciple, then I'll become your disciple. How embarrassing would that be? Chapter 528. Practice sword formation. What? You don't want to be my disciple? Seeing that Ningyu did not immediately acknowledge him as his master and instead had some misgivings, the middle-aged man revealed a displeased expression. How long has it been? And the cultivators of Snow Domain Pavilion have become so arrogant. You should leave. We don't welcome you here. By the way, tell the current pavilion master of the Snow Pavilion that no one is allowed to enter the Evil Cloud Pavilion in the future. I will seal this place. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, Ningyu's expression changed. Tell the current pavilion master of Snow Domain Pavilion? Are you kidding me? I went through so much trouble to enter the Snow Domain Pavilion just to save Lu Wei's parents, the current pavilion master and pavilion master's wife. Now, the middle-aged man had mistaken me for someone from the Snow Domain Pavilion. You have a problem with that? Seeing that Ningyu did not leave, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice, even if you have a problem, you better hold it in. I will let you off this time because you are a disciple of the Snow Domain Pavilion. If you know what's good for you, get the hell out of here. Otherwise, you will regret it. After a long time, Ningyu finally understood. It turned out that the middle-aged man had mistaken him for someone from the Snow Domain Pavilion. No wonder he wanted me to be his disciple. Senior, are you from the Snow Domain Pavilion too? Ningyu asked after hesitating for a while. Huh, are you not from the Snow Domain Pavilion? The middle-aged man frowned. Senior, I have nothing to do with the Snow Domain Pavilion. I just know the daughter of the current pavilion master. Ningyu answered honestly. Although the middle-aged man was just a soul shadow, he gave Ningyu a lot of pressure. It could be said that with Ningyu's current weakened state, he was definitely not a match for the middle-aged man. The daughter of the current pavilion master. Is her name Lu Wei? The middle-aged man furrowed his brows. Immediately after, a burst of energy erupted from his body, pressing down on Ningyu. What's your relationship with her? Tell me the truth. If you dare to lie, I'll make sure you never see the moon tonight. Senior, Lu Wei and I are good friends. Suppressed by the middle-aged man's aura, Ningyu hurriedly said, I'm here to save Lu Wei's parents. Save Lu Wei's parents? The middle-aged man was puzzled. That's right. It's mainly to save Lu Wei's parents. Ningyu nodded and told the middle-aged man about Lu Wei. After listening to Ningyu's story, the middle-aged man did not speak for a long time. Ningyu could even see a trace of anger on the middle-aged man's face. This trace of anger gradually deepened, and in the end, it became exceptionally frightening. I can't believe that after more than 10 years, Snow Domain Pavilion has become so dilapidated. After the anger subsided, the middle-aged man took a deep breath and thought to himself, I don't know if my decision to leave Little Row in Snow Domain Pavilion was right or wrong. Fortunately, I met this little brother today. Otherwise, I would feel guilty for the rest of my life. The middle-aged man's soul power was very strong. Naturally, he could tell that Ningyu was not lying. However, from what Ningyu said, it seemed that the person who trapped the current pavilion master of Snow Domain Pavilion was a martial artist at the peak of Yin-Yang Realm. This matter was a little tricky. This soul shadow of mine cannot leave the Evil Cloud Pavilion. It can only exist for half an hour. The middle-aged man thought for a while and said, I'll give you a chance, but you have to swear to protect Lu Wei for the rest of your life. You can't let her suffer any harm. Senior, Snow Domain Pavilion is in danger now. Isn't the risk I took to come here enough to prove something? Ningyu said solemnly. I swear that I won't let Lu Wei suffer any harm. Okay. The middle-aged man nodded and waved his hand. Suddenly, a jade bracelet flew toward Ningyu. The 999 flying swords are all in this jade bracelet. The middle-aged man explained. Moreover, there are some necessary cultivation resources in this jade bracelet. I hope you can give it to Lu Wei. Ningyu caught the jade bracelet steadily and sent a bit of his soul power into it. After a while, Ningyu retracted his soul power. His eyes were filled with shock. There were too many magical treasures and elixirs in the jade bracelet. So many that it was terrifying. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu asked, "Senior, are you so sure that I will give it to Lu Wei and not take it for myself?" "I believe you." The middle-aged man stared into Ningyu's eyes and said solemnly, "Believe my ass." Ningyu cursed in his heart. Ningyu knew very well that the middle-aged man did not believe him. Instead, he believed in his own judgment. Just now, Ningyu noticed that the middle-aged man's soul power was lingering in his mind. In other words, if he had the slightest thought of taking the jade bracelet for himself, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Ningyu naturally wouldn't speak of these things to others. It would be fine if he only knew about these things. "Senior, old he is at the pinnacle of the yin-yang realm. With my..." Ningyu hesitated. The 9 return to one sword array is extremely powerful. If you can cultivate it to the stage of initial success, you can still trap a pinnacle of the yin-yang realm martial artist for a few minutes. The middle-aged man interrupted Ningyu and said, "I will only explain the cultivation method of the 9 return to one sword array once." After that, the middle-aged man quickly explained the cultivation method of the 9 return to one sword array. After that, the middle-aged man waved his hands. Ningyu noticed that the more than 900 flying swords in the jade bracelet flew out in unison and floated beside the middle-aged man. "I will demonstrate the sword array for you. How much you can grasp and digest depends on your own ability." The middle-aged man's powerful soul power was separated and deposited on each flying sword before he began to demonstrate the sword array. 3 minutes later, the middle-aged man stopped and said to Ningyu, "Familiarize yourself with the sword array cultivation method first. Then, try to control the flying swords." Ningyu knew that the middle-aged man wanted to help him. He quickly recalled the sword array cultivation method in detail, fearing that he would miss out on any mistakes. 3 minutes later, Ningyu suddenly opened his eyes and rose from the ground, trying to grab the silver flying sword. "Wait!" However, before Ningyu could move, the middle-aged man waved his hand and said, "The silver serpent sword is only a supreme grade, heaven grade flying sword. It's far inferior to your red flying sword. Just use the red flying sword. If I'm not wrong, your red flying sword is at least king grade." Using a king grade flying sword as the core of the 9 return to one sword array can increase the power of the sword array by a level. Upon hearing that, Ningyu was slightly stunned. He immediately took out the red fiend sword and began to cultivate the 9 return to one sword array, using a flying sword with a sword spirit as the core of a sword array. Even I have not tried it before. I'm looking forward to it. In fact, when the middle-aged man appeared in the void, he noticed that the red flying sword in Ningyu's hand was unusual. To be precise, he noticed the scene of the red fiend tearing through the void and fusing with the red fiend sword. From the thick spiritual aura that the red fiend exuded, the middle-aged man determined that the red fiend was definitely a sword spirit. Whoosh! Chapter 529. Activate the portal. "Cold face, where's Ningyu?" the Alchemist Hall Master asked doubtfully as he stared at the tightly shut bronze door. "That's not right. Ningyu told me to wait for him here." Lung Mian opened his mouth, his face full of confusion. Ningyu had indeed told him to find him here when they recovered to their peak state. Why was there not a single person in sight? Could it be? Suddenly, Lung Mian's heart skipped a beat as he revealed an incredulous expression. Ningyu is on the other side of the stone door. What's there to be surprised about? Since Ningyu is on the other side of the stone door, we'll wait for him here. In the face of Lung Mian's shock, the Alchemist Hall Master felt a little speechless. Inexplicable, completely inexplicable. "Humph! What do you know?" Lung Mian coldly snorted. He then took a step forward and placed his hands on the bronze door. Creak! As Lung Mian exerted force, the heavy bronze stone door was slowly pushed open. Soul barrier. The moment the bronze door was pushed open, the Alchemist Hall Master discovered the soul formation within. Hiss. Since he had discovered the barrier, the alchemist temple master naturally had to investigate it. After all, the strength of his soul force had reached the 8th grade realm. However, as soon as the alchemist hall master's soul energy came into contact with the barrier, his expression changed drastically as he sucked in a mouthful of cold air. If he hadn't retreated in time, that wisp of soul force he had split out would have been completely devoured by the barrier. I thought you were powerful, but it turns out you can't even break a soul barrier. Seeing the alchemist hall master suffering a setback, Lung Mian could not help but mock. I can't break the barrier, but do you think you can? The alchemist hall master was extremely angry and said angrily, if it wasn't for Ningyu, I would have beaten you up so badly that even your parents wouldn't recognize you. Hee with just you? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror? You want to defeat me? Dream on. Lung Mian smiled. If you're not convinced, you can give it a try. The alchemist hall master released his aura and said coldly, let's give it a try. Who's afraid of who? Lung Mian also displayed the aura of a late-stage yin-yang realm, not showing any weakness. Why don't I try it with you? However, just as Lung Mian and the alchemist hall leader were about to fight, an indifferent voice slowly rang out in the area. Chi-Chi. The instant he said those words, everyone saw the soul power barrier before them suddenly become unstable. Rumble. The next moment, accompanied by a rumbling sound, the soul force boundary suddenly exploded. Shio. The spiritual energy boundary had just exploded when a skinny figure swiftly rushed out from within and steadily landed in front of the Alchemy Master Hall Chief's group. Ningyu. Seeing the familiar figure in front of them, the hearts of the Alchemist Hall Master, Lung Mian, and the others thumped. They immediately withdrew their auras and did not even dare to breathe loudly. I heard that the two of you want to spar. Ningyu's eyes slowly swept across the surroundings and finally landed on the Alchemist Hall Master and Lung Mian. How about a spar with me? We wouldn't dare. The Alchemist Hall Master and Lung Mian replied almost at the same time. Spar with Ningyu? What a joke. Both of them were now under Ningyu's control. Ningyu only needed to slightly use his soul power during the spar, and they would be defeated. There was no comparison between the two sides. Lung Mian, I know that you don't like me. Today, I'll let you see my true strength. Ningyu's eyes turned cold. He immediately rose from the ground and quickly rushed towards Lung Mian. 9 in 1 sword formation. In fact, before Ningyu came out, he had already thought about using Lung Mian to test the power of the sword formation. After half an hour of learning, Ningyu could already control 99 flying swords. With the power of the sword formation, Ningyu was confident that he could fight with Lung Mian. Oh no! Originally, when Ningyu attacked, Lung Mian's idea was to let Ningyu take advantage of him. Now, it seemed that if he did not use his full strength, he might not be able to block the 99 flying swords in front of him. Ding, ding, ding. The fight between Ningyu and Lung Mian ended quickly. In the end, Lung Mian and Ningyu fought to a draw. Neither of them could do anything to the other. Even so, the strength that Ningyu had displayed had left the Alchemist Hall Master and the others dumbfounded. Since when did Ningyu's strength become so strong? Lung Mian was a late-stage yin-yang realm martial artist. How could Ningyu fight him to a draw? Was this world too crazy, or were they too stupid? Not bad. With the Red Fiend sword as the eye of the formation and 98 mystic flying swords, he can actually fight Lung Mian to a draw. Ningyu kept the flying swords in the air and nodded slightly, expressing his satisfaction. The 9 in 1 sword formation had a total of 999 flying swords. He only used 99 flying swords to fight Lung Mian to a draw. When we leave Snowfield Pavilion, we have to change all the mystic flying swords to Earth-grade flying swords or even Heaven-grade flying swords. 99 mystic flying swords exploded with such powerful power. One could imagine that if they were all replaced with Earth-grade or Heaven-grade flying swords, the power would increase to an extremely terrifying level. Although the 9 in 1 sword formation was very powerful, it was more difficult to cultivate. One had to be very familiar with the control of soul power to be able to cultivate it to the level of mastery. If Ningyu did not have the strength of a peak 9th grade soul power in his previous life, it would basically be impossible for him to cultivate the 9 in one sword formation to this level in half an hour. You guys go into the storage ring first. Lung Mian, come with me to the Evil Cloud Pavilion's teleportation array. Ningyu gave the order without hesitation. Everyone hurriedly transformed into a series of afterimages before entering the storage ring. In the blink of an eye, only Ningyu and Lung Mian were left in the area. Even Poison Scorpion's corpse was thrown into the storage ring. Let's go. Bring me to the teleportation array. I want to meet the so-called Elder Crane, said Ningyu calmly to Lung Mian. Let's go. Lung Mian dared not delay. He immediately rose from the ground and flew toward the teleportation array. Swoosh! Soon, Ningyu and Lung Mian stopped in a wide area. Are you sure there's a teleportation array here? Ningyu frowned slightly. It did not look like there was a teleportation array here. Activating the teleportation array requires 5 supreme essence crystals. Lung Mian raised his right foot and stomped down hard. Crack! In the next instant, a huge crack appeared on the ground. Then, a circular altar slowly emerged. Ningyu looked over and saw 5 grooves on the altar. It was obvious that the grooves were used to store supreme essence crystals. This teleportation array seems very simple. In his previous life, Ningyu had seen many teleportation arrays. He had seen many extremely simple teleportation arrays like this one. The principle of this teleportation array was very simple. It relied on the essence chi in supreme essence crystals to forcefully tear open the void and teleport to another place within a short distance. Swish! 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 Ningyu shook his wrist. 5 supreme essence crystals flew out and landed steadily in the grooves on the altar. As for Ningyu and Lung Mian, they took a step forward and stood on the altar. Rumble. As soon as Ningyu and Lung Mian stood on the altar, a huge pillar of light erupted from the altar and instantly enveloped Ningyu and the others. Lung Mian, where will this teleportation array send us? The room where Elder Crane is, of course. Chapter 530. Testing each other. The Great Xia Kingdom is in troubled times. If we can get our hands on a treasure like the one in Snow Pavilion, the Imperial family's strength will be enhanced. In the deepest part of Snow Pavilion's forbidden ground, in a secret chamber with the densest essence chi, an old man was pacing back and forth with a solemn look on his face. The old man was none other than the Yin-Yang realm martial artist that Ningyu was looking for, Old Crane. That old donkey is very stubborn. Forcing him won't work. I can only look for a breakthrough from his daughter. Old Crane frowned slightly and murmured, I wonder if Lung Mian and the others have found out the cause of Black Whirlwind's death. There might be a fierce battle in Snow Pavilion tomorrow night. If worst comes to worst, I'll call them back. Lu Wei was in the Sacred Institute of Danwu College. Ning Yu's identity as a core disciple of the Sacred Institute might be enough to invite the dean of the Sacred Institute. The dean of the Sacred Institute was not scary. His highest cultivation was only at early stage Yin-Yang realm. What was scary was the group of old monsters in the Forbidden Ground. If those old monsters had nothing better to do and came out to help Lu Wei, the situation would become complicated. Most importantly, he had just received a message from the Imperial Palace. An old monster in Danwu College who was related to the dean of the Sacred Institute had come out of seclusion. Forget it. We can investigate Black Whirlwind's death later. The most important thing now is to send Lu Wei to the Imperial Palace before tomorrow night. Old Crane reached into his robe and took out a telepathic crystal ball to communicate with Scorpion. Buzz. However, as soon as Old Crane took out the crystal ball, his expression changed drastically, and he could not help but retreat. When Old Crane retreated, the space in front of him was suddenly torn open, and 2 martial artists appeared in front of him. Lung Mian. The sudden change left Old He a little dumbfounded. Logically speaking, He should have noticed the crack in the space immediately with his perception. Since he did not notice it immediately, it meant that the crack in the space was unusual. It should be from the simple teleportation array in Evil Cloud Pavilion. Where's Scorpion? After confirming that the crack was caused by the teleportation array, Old Crane's face turned gloomy. Didn't I tell him not to activate the teleportation array unless it's something important? Was his ear bitten off by dog? And you seem to be Ningyu. Elder, he turned to look at Ningyu. As soon as he laid eyes on Ningyu, Old Crane's eyes were filled with shock. Ningyu. Although Old Crane had never seen Ningyu's true appearance, he had seen his portrait and heard of Ningyu's cultivation base. Wasn't Ningyu in the true martial realm? Why had his cultivation reached the mid-primal core stage? Moreover, he seemed to be more familiar with Lung Mian. I don't think I found anything. Ningyu's mind raced when he heard Old Crane's words. He didn't follow his original plan to attack Old Crane. Since Old Crane hadn't found anything amiss, why not feign civility with him first and then look for a way out? At this thought, Ningyu concealed the 7 golden essences in his consciousness and said calmly, Old Crane, I am indeed Ningyu. I'm here to discuss something with you. Oh, what do you want to discuss with me? Old Crane raised an eyebrow and stared at Ningyu with interest. If it's about Lu Wei, I think you should keep your mouth shut. Lu Wei must come to Shuiyu Pavilion by tomorrow night. Otherwise, her parents will be executed by 1,000 cuts. You want to execute Lu Wei's parents by 1,000 cuts? It won't be that easy. Ningyu snorted under his breath, but his expression remained impassive. Old Crane, I'm not pleading on Lu Wei's behalf. I was asked by Lu Wei to see her parents and make sure they're still alive. Old Crane didn't answer Ningyu immediately. Instead, he turned his questioning gaze to Lung Mian. Old Crane, this is most likely true. Lung Mian was under Ningyu's control, so he had no choice but to answer according to Ningyu's wishes. When I went to investigate Black Whirlwind's death, I met Ningyu outside the capital. Ningyu was with Wan Jingtian at the time. Wan Jingtian? What does this have to do with Wan Jingtian? Old Crane muttered to himself. According to Ningyu, he had entered the snow pavilion to confirm if Lu Wei's parents were still alive. How did this involve Black Whirlwind's death and Wan Jingtian? Could it be that Black Whirlwind had died at the hands of Ningyu? As soon as this thought popped up, Old Crane killed it off. That was impossible. Ningyu was only at the mid-primal core stage, while Black Whirlwind was at the advanced yin-yang stage. There's a world of difference in their strengths. Even 8 Ningyus would not be a match for Black Whirlwind. Black Whirlwind was killed by Wan Jingtian. Lung Mian threw out a bombshell. Moreover, Sir Scorpion has already gone after Wan Jingtian. What? Lung Mian's bombshell was so heavy that Old Crane unleashed all his aura to suppress Lung Mian. Tell me clearly, what exactly is going on? Although Old Crane's aura was directed at Lung Mian, Ningyu was more or less affected by it. At the same time, Ningyu was glad that he did not attack Old Crane right away. Old Crane's strength far exceeded Scorpion's. Even 3 Scorpion were not a match for Old Crane. This was because Old Crane's strength had vaguely touched the threshold of the manifestation state. He was only 1 step away from the half-step manifestation state. Being suppressed by Old Crane's aura, Lung Mian did not dare to be careless. He hurriedly used the words that he had used to deceive Scorpion.